Chris, this is Dawn in the boardroom. Can you hear us?
What's going on with my audio here? One, two, three, four, five.
Chris, this is Dawn in the boardroom. We can hear you. Can you confirm you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you. I had to have issue with my mic for a minute.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Good morning, Dawn. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Mary. We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, December 13th, 2021, and this is the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors, and we'll begin our morning work session scheduled. Our first one at 8:15 is with our County Engineer, Anthony Barjett. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. So I'd like to start off the discussion this morning talking about what we're going to call the airport shop discussion. That's the subject of today. So we're going to walk through a little bit of history here, and I've got the airport director, Todd Dalzing here. IT director Nathan Gilmore is going to chime in a little bit, and then Chris Soder's on. I think he's on the call to kind of help chime in as well. So to give a little background, for a number of years, 20, 25 years maybe, we've had a couple different response locations in the southeast area of the county. One location would be at the Key West DOT shop location. One of our motor vehicle operators comes out of that location, and then one of our truck plows comes out of the Dubuque Airport, one of their little maintenance sheds. Since the DOT has now moved shop locations to the south end of the Southwest Arterial, they're actively looking to vacate that building and auction it off, and it'll be kind of be done with it. So we're on sort of a borrowed time right now with the motor vehicle operator located there. He's still housed there, but probably up until about March is what we're being told, and then it'll probably go to a public auction from there. At the same time, again, we've been housing a truck plow out of the Dubuque Airport shop location. The shop location is maybe on its last legs, to put it in kind words. It's a very kind of dilapidated building. It's definitely served its purpose. Here, I'm just going to kind of share some Google Earth images here to kind of show you locations here.
Does it look kind of like the condition that your building was before we replaced your previous home with West Campus?
Yeah, I would say so, but it's much smaller. You really can't store a whole lot in there, but
the condition is
is pretty rough, yeah. Okay, I was going to start off there by kind of showing the Key West DOT location. So here's Key West. Not a real great image there, but come on, catch up. Okay, so that would be the old Key West DOT shed location that they've vacated. We park one motor grader operator out there that responds to the southeast area of the county. I'll just show you real quick here the area that he serves. Flip over. Not. I want to share a different screen. Do I have to switch that?
Stop your share and
Okay.
share again.
There we go. Okay. So M7 is our motor grader operator. This is the different regions of the county itself. M7 comes out of the DOT shop location, so right up in this area. You can see he's on the northern tip of the territory, and he has to serve this whole area of the southeast area of the county. At the same time, here's the airport location right here. And that's one of our truck plow operators comes out of there. I was just going to give you a little bit of perspective there. Let's switch back to Google Earth. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the airport shop location, kind of show you that. Okay, so currently, one of our truck operators comes out of this little building right here. It's a little 4-bay building that, how many years old would you say that is, Todd? 35 plus years? Okay, and then this house right here has actually been excavated, it's been removed, it's no longer there. So, for purposes of today's discussion, we are talking about possibly building a new shop at this location right here, just north of this little shed here.
That county property?
So why don't I invite you up here, Todd? Yeah. Kind of share a little bit on that.
Yep. Todd Dolsing, Dubuque Regional Airport. Thanks for having me this morning for the discussion. So the property is, so we're a little different egg out there, as if you recall. So we're a city department in the county that receives federal and state funding. So we deal with a little bit of everybody entity. But so to answer, is that county property, and this is my understanding, is from the roadways into the right-of-way is city property. The structures on the airport property are city property. Now, if you go past the right-of-way into what I would say the undeveloped areas, that would be considered county. So those are taxable by the county. I hope that, does that answer your question, I think? So this particular parcel, I guess it's kind of how you view it. There was a structure on that was deconstructed. So I guess I would say that area is city. But basically, either way, whoever would be on there, we would have to do a land lease to meet our federal requirements, FAA requirements. So what this means is it would be a multi-year land lease at a certain dollar amount per square foot, basically. And maybe that's what Anthony's going to be getting to in a minute here. So I'll just stop there, and then when we get to that land lease, we can talk about that in a little more detail.
All right, that's great perspective.
But that's what we have right now, is a land lease for the shop that exists.
No, currently it's what I would call a handshake agreement. You know, at the time we were looking for some space on the south end of town. You know, we've been very good partners with the county for multiple years. Thank you for that, by the way. Not only are we partners with our SCASD grant to attract more air service, but recently Supervisor Wickham's on our Air Service Task Force. Supervisor McDonough has been on our air master plan and so on. And, you know, the history goes on. So we appreciate our partnership. We look at the city county as a partner at the airport, and to continue that partnership, we offered a bay for a snow plow in exchange for assisting us plow that main road in the morning, because We, like many of your departments, are a very small staff, and any little bit of help that we can get is always appreciated. So when the guys are out there first thing in the morning, they're able to hit that road, plow it, put a little chemical on it. That buys our folks some time to concentrate on the airfield and some other priority areas we've had. So it's basically been a bit of a partnership, handshake agreement for several years.
Thank you, Todd. So yeah, we're kind of come to the point where we need to formalize some things a little more. If we did not have this location or the DOT shed location up there at Key West, both of these operators would be coming out of the Dubuque shop. And that's quite a run for them to respond to this area of the county, especially in snow removal purposes. That takes some time to get down to this area of the county. So it is critical that we try to find somewhere to house these two employees and possibly expand onto a couple other employees into the future, where we see responding to some of the subdivisions that we serve as well, and some of the other rural areas as well. So kind of keep it in mind, we have two guys that we need to serve right away. We also would like to grow that a little bit as the needs of the county grow as well. So, flip to... Kind of back to this document here. So again, this is the location we'd be looking at right here at the airport shop. You can see how it's much more centralized on that territory. It allows us to respond, especially to the rural gravel roads that M7 has to respond to, instead of coming out of Key West at the northern tip there. And also Kenny, one of our plow operators that comes out of the airport shop, he serves a lot of these pavements that are down this area. So it'd be a much quicker response for him to stay at this location. And then we also serve the south, what we call the south subdivisions from Key West south. That's a location that we could potentially grow or add another employee down there from the Dubuque shop and serve that area a little bit more efficiently. So going to the next page. Kind of a closer look at the territory. Okay, so on to the options for the building itself. I know Chris Soder did quite a bit of legwork on the cost estimating for this. Chris, are you online right now?
Yeah, I am.
Would you like
Can you
to
hear
kind
me?
of speak to? Yeah, we can hear you. Would you like
Okay.
to kind of speak to the research you did behind the scenes on the cost of the buildings themselves?
You bet. I contacted a local engineering company to get some information from them, and I also went online through a couple of our available buyers groups and contacted a couple of the engineering companies, design build companies there. The numbers they came back with for the overall size of the building, whether it was the smaller option 2 or the recommended option 1, was $43.50 a square foot, and that is erected concrete and all the utility, all the stuff stubbed in for utilities. The remaining price breakdowns are there for sewer tie-in, heat, electrical, fire alarm, plumbing, air exchange, so we don't have the problem we had at the Farley shop, break room office and small break room office, and then with a lav with a shower. And then I also included the IT numbers in there from Nathan to come up with our totals. $43.50 a square foot is what they're all saying, based on the increased costs that will be occurring across the next 3 or 4 months before we could start to do any building out there. It will probably be less than that moving forward, but until we can actually set times and get a design build company in to put the final touches to the numbers, that's what we're looking at. Again, the initial numbers I'd had was about $37.50 to $38 a square foot, but with the issues with supplies and being able to get some of this stuff, it's going to have an effect. Just don't know how much effect it will. It will definitely be less than 43.50 a square foot, but no guarantees as to what that number will be. This gives us a 24-foot complete drive-through wash bay, 150 by 80-foot building, 5 24-foot vehicle bays with 18-foot doors, and all the rest of the stuff we would need to be able to service our vehicles out there and help the airport out when they've got their bigger vehicles that they can't wash. That would assist. It's going to be a good win-win for both of us.
Well, as you can see, we looked at a couple different options here. We started off by trying to be, obviously as cost effective as possible or cost efficient as possible. So we looked at a 3-bay building, which is option number 2. And then after, discussing what the airport's needs are and what our future needs are going to be as far as expanding into another couple employees out there, we really thought that option 1 needs to be the one that we need to recommend today. That's where I'm going to kind of turn it over to Todd just a minute here, but as far as this lease arrangement for the land, we want to kind of couple this with the airport and have them use the facility as well. There would be this wash bay that they can use. One of the bays, they might be able to store some equipment as well. You want to kind of talk about the trade-off there?
Yeah, no, again, in the spirit of partnership, and as we met, and as you just noted, the building that they're currently, the county's currently occupying is old, antiquated, and that would be scheduled for deconstruction. We have an old maintenance bay that we've grown out of, but we still use it for storage, and that's on our air side. It's connected to our apron, and that is scheduled for deconstruction because we're looking to build another corporate hangar there. So we're losing a lot of storage in the process of expanding at the airport, which is good for us, but we need to expand as well. So again, kind of in the spirit of partnership, the discussion was, hey, why don't we do this as shared building? We do have to do a land lease, and there is a cost associated with that per year. So we thought in our discussions that we could do an additional bay and then possibly split the cost of the vehicle wash station. And then I think the figures are in the lease, but I think it's like $15,000 a year or something like that. And typically these leases are about a 35-year lease. So we do these not only for hangars, but also for buildings in our business park. As you know, there's 2 businesses out there. There's a bus company and a concrete company that we do land leases with, and this would be no different. So the thought is we would amortize this out over years to whatever we occupy, if it's 1 bay or 2 bays, and then half of a wash bay. So it'd be a bit of a wash.
I don't understand the partnership words here. Do we pay anything right now to be at the airport? So that's the mutual benefit. Is the city paying $859,000 to do the new building, or we're building an improvement on your land?
So we'd be building this improvement on their land.
Okay, so now I need to go to the need for the county,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So we have a relationship that's a handshake. Sounds like it's mutually beneficial, like that. What about purchasing the DOT building at auction?
So we've looked at that, and we've had some discussions with the DOT to see if it could even be given to us, as another government entity. That is not an option from them, so it has to go to auction. We've looked at the shop. There's a reason why the DOT has left it. It's in poor condition. There would probably be some underground hazardous materials there, as far as storage tanks. There's a lot of issues there that I don't think we necessarily want to get into. There'd be quite a bit of cost to try to clean up and remodel buildings, if at all, if we could remodel them. So I think at auction, it's going to go pretty competitive for that spot of land right there. But yeah, to kind of sum it up, for 25 plus years, we've had a handshake agreement to be out there. We plow the main road, and they allow us to park our truck in that bay. Now it's the point where that building is in rough shape and needs to probably come down very soon here. The DOT shed location is being vacated, so we got 2 things going on against us that we need to figure out fairly soon here within the next year.
Can you go back to your service map for me?
Yeah.
And just tell me a little bit about the service area and how the new facility would serve the service area again.
Okay, so that kind of peach,
It's all M7?
that's all M7.
Okay.
So
And how
Kevin Herrick serves all this area. He's our maintainer operator that comes out of the Key West area. So all the gravel road system that's throughout here, he has to jump back and forth over 61 and 52. And then also with the highways that are within this vicinity, Kenny pretty much stays within the Peach area as well, within the M7 area. So you can see how this is definitely more centralized down here. It's easier to kind of get around down that way as opposed to coming out of the Key West area. So that just gives you kind of perspective of the land mass area that we have to serve.
And what would the equipment typically be stored there? Would it be a motor grader and dump truck, or?
Motor grader, dump truck, probably would have a loader there as well, because we would want to have a salt bay out there,
Okay.
a salt shed location.
So the DOT is not offering us any spot at their new place, or?
They've allowed us, or they're offering us to be there temporarily. They don't have room for us to be there permanently, and so they have not offered that to us, no. They've actually requested for us, for the maintainer operator to stay at the old location just for security purposes, so somebody's kind of hovering around there until they get rid of it. So they're not charging us utilities or anything like that until it's auctioned off. So we have kind of another little handshake agreement. That's another handshake agreement for years. He's parked up there in that shed location, and there's just never been anything in writing on this stuff.
Anthony, can you talk about maybe a summary of the facilities we have, obviously starting with the main one at the West Campus and then
Yeah.
Farley, and then I know we have little one-bay shops in Fillmore and other places. Just kind of verbally give us a quick snapshot of the county of where our facilities are from Durango on out.
You bet. So we obviously have our West Campus, which is out, on Zappa Road up in this area right here. And then we have our Farley shop, which would be over here. And then we have the shop up there in Durango, up in this kind of area of M4. Then we have actually a building that we lease from Greg Willie in the wintertime for the maintainer operator that comes up out of the Holy Cross area. Otherwise, he parks during the summertime right there on Holy Cross Road and Highway 3 there. There's a salt bin right there. He parks there. And then we have a one-bay building out there in New Vienna. And so we have the one down there in Fillmore. And then I think there's one down there in Worthington as well. So one-bay buildings kind of skirting the outside edges of the county. Main shops at Farley and Dubuque. This would be one of our other main shops, I guess Durango as well.
Highlight Fillmore for me on the map. I'm kind of trying to catch how far away that is from the airport.
It's actually by the Fillmore Golf Course there.
Is it in M12? I can't see quite on the map. I'm trying to
Get in there.
Here you go. I figured it's by Whitewater there.
Okay, let's see, where's that at?
So maybe my question is, talk me through why wouldn't we develop at Fillmore where we own the land, maybe make that shop a little bigger, a little more accessible versus doing the airport? Just, as if you're looking at options to service the south end.
Sure. I mean, this is quite a ways off from this eastern area of the county. We probably would never pull this guy from this location over here and vice versa. We would like to just kind of maintain this as a little one-bay shop down this area.
Because it's further south and you go to the county line, and that's it, right? Okay.
Two other things, or I guess one other thing. We have the south subs and the north subs of Dubuque area. So we serve the south subs right there at Key West.
Subdivisions you're referring
Subdivision is what we call, yeah.
Yep.
which takes some time. You know, it's usually one person dedicated to those areas. We also have the north subdivisions up there in like Tanzanite and all those areas. We thought about pulling the south subdivision route out of this location, but potentially also the same thing with the north subdivision, that we could grow that into that, because otherwise they're all coming out of the Dubuque area.
Where's Oak Ridge Farms on that map? Can you see Oak Ridge Farms, the
Not sure
road
where
there?
it is.
Right off to the Table Mound there between, I was wondering if in that area, because one of the other things I was thinking is if, you know, another case for your shop is there should be more development in that area.
Is that the one off of,
Yep.
north of the airport there?
Yeah,
That would be, what, right up in this area?
51, but
Yeah. It appears it's between M7 and the other one.
somewhere in there.
Okay.
But you're right, Supervisor Wickman, a lot of development obviously is going to the south, and that's what we're planning for in our master plan, you know, with the airport, and then, of course, west, because, you know, north is kind of geologically challenged, and east you're in the water, so.
I'm just not a fan of, you know, we're into another lease. I'm not a fan of building, you know, nearly $1 million facility on somebody else's land and then entering into an annual land lease. That is not what I'd like to do. I understand we've got some issues with time, you know, that we don't know how long. It sounds like we're probably going to get through this winter okay. So I think it's an opening conversation, but I would like to see you highlight land we own possibilities for this. I'd like to see that presented maybe next.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was getting at too. Land we own would be interesting. You know, certainly if you buy private land, it's almost like leasing. You're taking it off the tax rolls. You'll have to take a look at those, you know, dollar differences. But I don't know if we own any existing land in that area. Obviously, if it's state or federal land that we could acquire, that would already be off the tax rolls. From my vantage point, I'm not too concerned necessarily about the lease agreement if the space is right and the location is right.
It's the double thing that we're going to construct it and then we're going to lease it forever.
I agree. I think we're also looking at it as a partnership, you know, like Todd spoke to. You know, we've had this partnership for 25 plus years. We would like to formalize it now and work together. Yes, it's leased ground that we don't own, but I think it's, you know, wouldn't be any different than if we try to rent a space from the DOT shed at their new location. That we wouldn't own that. We would just.
Except we wouldn't be building $1 million building.
Correct, but buildings are expensive and land is hard to come by as well.
Agreed, and that's why I'm not saying buy new land. I would like to be educated about what we have. To me, it's a significant difference from our current handshake.
Yep.
That if we, you know, maybe we build the building and then it's a zero land lease, right? Like that's a partnership where we do your one road just like we do now on the way out, but we've made a major investment in the airport campus. To me, that seems like, you know, I'm not looking at tying the county into long-term expense on an annual basis. I mean, that can be, it's not an outrageous sum of money, $15,000. I honestly don't recall the term, how long the lease is.
And maybe I need to clarify too. So that $15,000 per year, basically we would be offsetting the cost of one of the bays for us to store equipment in or two or whatever we end up with. Obviously, this is all just for discussion, but there'll be no charge for X number of years, 20 years, 25 years, 30, whatever that amount, that time is, at $15,000, you know, a year times whatever it costs to build that bay. So the airport's kind of build the cost, I guess, or I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah, so really there would be a zero annual charge for multiple years. Do we amortize that out at all?
We didn't quite do that yet.
Okay, yeah, obviously it's all just an initial discussion at this point, but we can amortize that out now that we've got some hard costs, what the land lease is, and then how many years that there would be zero cost to the county to lease that land.
you know, out of the $900,000, let's say they're responsible for $200,000 worth of the wash bay and one bay. Just give an example. You take that, divide it by 15, and you multiply that out by the number of years that would be offset, that we would not have to pay that lease payment.
So what you're saying is we could use a capital fund to basically pay for the building, the usage from the airport would be a pass-through, and you would identify that use of the building as part of the land lease. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
So we wouldn't be future boards wouldn't be writing checks for leasing the land?
Not until, you know, we get to the end of that amortization.
Sure, so whether it be 10 years or 20 years or 30 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
That helps me a little bit. I mean, so it would be, you know, my vantage point, we'd use, you know, long-term capital funds if we wanted to do this. I would not want to take it out of your budget. I want to have that go to roads and bridges, kind of like we did with the shop, went out of debt service and long-term capital. I'm getting more comfortable with it.
So we can certainly work on that amortization schedule and give you guys a better idea of how many years out that'd be. I could show you a revised map of the different locations we have in the county for what we actually own for land. You know, today wasn't meant to make any hard decisions. I want to get ahead of the budget work sessions, just so you have an idea of what's coming and be thinking about this.
Right. And Nathan is sitting here as IT. I'm wondering if we're going to do a land lease for a $900,000 improvement at the airport. I'm wondering if there's anything else we would like to negotiate at that time with regard to, no, I mean, if it's going to come up again in budget, there are middle mile things. I mean, we're digging in the ground. What would we like to do to facilitate expansion in that area with regard to, it doesn't have to be today, Nathan, but I would ask you to look at that as well. If we're going to be there, I want to put in the infrastructure we need.
Absolutely. And we had early discussions on this. We don't have all the information yet, but no, that was literally
we talked
that
about
was the opening conversation of, hey.
When Nathan stepped in, he said, well, wait, let's talk about connectivity, because that's high on our priorities. So, details about connecting the kind of the.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever that.
I don't want to overstep in a public session here, but that conversation has been started and coming out perhaps a little stronger now that with your request, we can certainly have other conversations about connectivity and conduit and where that might look like, since we're going to be there for decades.
Just so you all know, the airport does have what we call a DMARC. At at the airport, we are connected to like the city via fiber, obviously, and we have conduit currently along the road that Nathan and I we've already talked about what we could do to share to make that connectivity, and then again, as he mentioned, future development to maybe to connect out what I would call the north side of the airfield. So.
Yeah, we realize this is a lot to throw at you guys this morning. So we just want to kind of start the discussion, give you an idea of kind of, what we've been thinking so far, the sort of the problem ahead of us, and we're just trying to come up with some different solutions as to how to better serve the southeast area of the county.
As the Iowa DOT shop goes up for auction, do you have anything more formal than your thoughts? Do we have any kind of assessment of it? Do we have anything in writing about it saying it's a good idea, it's a bad idea? I mean, I understand you believe there's hazardous materials. Can we pull that together for a file? Because I'd like to be able to be certain that isn't. I mean, to me, that looks obvious, right? You buy the shop that somebody else is abandoning. Right? If that works, and it's been working for us, I know it's not pretty and it's not in great condition, but I don't know what it might go at for an auction. But have we worked that up as a possibility so that we could say to the taxpayers, we've looked at that and we've ruled it out because of these things. I don't think any taxpayer wants to buy a contaminated site.
Right.
But is that just gossip, or do we know that there's something that supports we should stay away from that location?
Yeah, well, a couple years ago, at least 2 years ago, I started the discussion with the DOT because they were already in the works with building the new shop, and I pretty quickly jumped on it. Hey, are you guys interested in just deeding it over to the county? I would gladly take it for free and, you know, keep parking our equipment there. There were some discussions, you know, higher up in the DOT, was that even a possibility? I think because it's own land, for some reason, there's some rules that they have to actually go through an auction process. So, I mean, I can get some more information from the DOT for the file if you'd like, and then what all is involved with hazardous materials and things like that. I became less interested when I knew I was going to have to publicly bid for it. I think there'll be some strong bidders out there, but maybe not, who knows. But the condition of the buildings, you know, there's a reason why, again, the DOT is leaving that location.
Yeah.
I have very little in buying an old building, and I have very little interest in competing against the private sector at auction. That's where I'm at, on that facility.
I've been at the facility several times, and it's in rough shape, and
It's good to let it go.
probably, because you're gonna be sticking a lot of money in it,
Well, and again, I think if it was more centrally located to that district, I would be more interested in trying to go after it in auction. But because it's so far to the north, and frankly, if we didn't have this opportunity with the airport, you know, that's kind of been pulling me that direction.
Right. But are we saying that there's no price we would pay for this, I mean, you've tried to get the DOT building at no cost.
Right.
So that tells me we have some interest. We don't go around just picking things up just to hold. So that's what I would like to just be sure that that's been a part of our conversation before we talk about a $900,000 with prices increasing, development of a building on land we're never going to own.
Yep.
the DOT building. It could be one of the most expensive free things you ever had also.
And again, that's why the question's being asked. If that's the answer, that's a perfectly fine answer, and I appreciate knowing it.
And that'd be my position as well. If you look at the location and you look at the facility and the fact it's going to auction, I would let it go to auction. If they don't get any acceptable bids and they reject all the bids and they want to gift it to the county, then we could consider that. But this day and age, buying old buildings, you know, that's when I first sat in this chair, we had a lot of those. That didn't work for us. They cost a lot, bad for morale. They weren't protecting equipment very well. We've upgraded our facilities tremendously, and the service, I think, that we can respond will help that. So I would be continuing to move towards that, and that's where the development is. It's going to be in south of Dubuque and on the Highway 20 corridor. And so, look out in the next 20 years, this would be a good thing to really evaluate.
I'm interested in following up to see if there's any other land opportunities for us, something that we own, before I build a building on the city's property.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be glad to do some follow-up work with this and come at another work session with you guys.
And I understand that that's where you've settled, that seems to you to be, but this is preliminary information for me, so.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be the sole person to make the decision on this. I want all eyes on this, and, we need to make the best decision possible for the county. So.
Well, I appreciate you're not here generally with just whims. You're here after you've done a significant amount of research yourself, and I value that. So I guess I just have more questions, and that this is going to come up before us again, so we'll all better understand.
Yeah. Any other questions you can think of for us right now?
Are you thinking this is going to come back to us as part of your budget? I mean, that's going to just be a few short weeks here into January.
Well, that was my intention because, again, the motor grader operator, he's not going to have a home, after probably March. So we're going to have to probably...
A lot of winter left.
We'd like to budget this and have this bid out by spring if we can, and then have it constructed maybe by next fall, winter-ish, and then have a place for him to start going to. Otherwise, we're going to have to kind of beg to get into the DOT new building or take him back up to the Dubuque area, which is going to be a lot less efficient. And
I would ask the city if there's any kind of infrastructure funding coming from the federal government that maybe you build the building and, we become a tenant.
Sure. We can look into that, of course, and we're going through our budget cycle as well very soon. Out of all the federal relief funds, those are all spoken for us. Debt service, operating costs, things like that we've received to date. There is the infrastructure bill, which we don't have direction on currently. But I do know those are, I think they're, for us at least, they're geared more towards airside, infrastructural, projects. So like, taxiway runways, things like that, more so than a landside development. But, yeah, absolutely, we can look into it, as a lease, process, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions about this project?
I don't have anything, thank you.
No, I'm good.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Todd, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have a few other minutes here as well. You have an engineer's report and then also general department discussion.
Sure. Well, you guys may have noticed I did not send a report yesterday because we are done with projects. So I can pretty much close that out for the year until next spring. I did want to give one update for the general road department discussion. So as we're closing in on the final plans for the John Deere Build Grant project, we are going to need to start going out for RFPs on the construction engineering bids for that. And similar to the design RFP that we put out, and Chairperson McDonough served on as well for the committee, we're looking to do the same thing for the construction administration. So I will be sending out letters for RFP response fairly soon here. And then once we kind of get the scoring committee together and everything, then we'll come back to the supervisors with a recommendation. So we'll be walking through that process over the next, month to 2 months probably. And still on track for bidding out the project. I think right now it's March letting. So final plans are due at the end of this month. And so we're still very much on track for the project.
You anticipate it will be one general contractor for awarding that bid, or they might have subs underneath it, but it'll be awarded to one general?
You'll have two different contracts for the John Deere part and the city's Northwest Arterial part. So probably will have, you could have one contractor, prime contractor over both. But one is concrete and one's asphalt. So you may see two different primes on that. And then within ours, you'll have a prime and then you'll have several subs below that.
My question would be, again, about the infrastructure bill. We were on Zoom on last week, seems like a long time ago already, with Sue Anderson from Iowa DOT. And I'm just wondering, where are you on the learning curve of what's in the infrastructure bill and how that might impact any county planning?
Sure. I guess what we've heard so far is our general STBG funds, bridge funds that come through the region, we're looking at around a 30% increase, is what they're talking about right now.
Didn't you say that with a smile?
yeah, I should say that. Then there's the grant base side. So absolutely, 30% is going to be huge for us. We're going to take it. Then there's the grant base side for bridges specifically. The state's going to have to figure out how to set up that competitive process, whether that's just strictly, obligated to each region, and then we competitively go after it within our own region, or everybody goes after it amongst, one big pot in the state. So that all has to be worked out. I think, Stuart Anderson, he was alluding to that a little bit, that there's probably a year process to kind of have Congress appropriate the funds. Then it goes down to the state level. The state has to figure out how to formulate all this stuff. Sounds like the state of Iowa is going to formulate things according to how we generally receive our revenue now. But then that grant process is going to be something that the DOT, the County Association, cities, they're all going to have to get together at the table and figure out how to divide that up. So it's going to take probably a year to kind of flesh that all out and figure out, where all the funding is going to go.
When you present your budget to us, will you be taking any of that information into account?
So local revenues, none of the infrastructure bills affects that. Then outside of the actual Dubuque County budget, I plan out projects based on current revenues, whether it means farm to market fund or STBG funds. So you'll see as I bring the 5-year plan, everything's planned out according to those revenue levels. Then as soon as we know what the added money is coming in, that'll probably affect next year's 5-year plan, I'm guessing. So you'll probably see normal revenues right now, planning, and then 1 year from now, increased planning.
And then I always am looking for something with regard to Rickardsville and Bankston and Partners, and I know that that's not, well, the DOT's Rickardsville issue is roads related, but it's, you know, sewer water more, and Bankston is sewer water. Do you have anything there that we should be exploring? I just am always concerned about that debt that they have for such, you know, low population.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've heard there's quite a bit of water sewer, you know, revenue coming through this bill. Again, you know, just don't know the details yet, but, you know, once that starts coming down, I know Chandler at ECIA, he's keeping an eye on what that all means as well. So hopefully within the next, you know, 6 months to a year, we can figure that out and kind of figure out who all could be helped by this bill.
It would be, just in our last 2 minutes, it would be good to have, I don't know if you'll do this as part of the budget. I'm still, you know, obviously all learning all things budget, but a kind of a summary at the end of the year of the roads and the bridges that we've done. That will be something we'll be asked from now until, you know, March 1st by taxpayers. What's the summary look like? How many miles did we do? That's just a really good, now that you tell me you don't have an update on that, then I know that you've got numbers you can crunch for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Once we do the budget work session and a 5-year plan, I'll show you a summary of what we completed this year, and then I'll give you kind of a forecast of what we have coming up for this next year. I like to show, you know, the story through pictures, and so kind of what we've already done and what's ahead of us for conditions. So, yeah, I plan to have a pretty detailed report for you on all that.
Thank you, Anthony.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
We'll need to recess in the next half an hour, whether it's now or in half an hour. Pardon? I will need to recess probably before we get through the whole agenda. Would you like to take a brief recess?
Yeah, take it.
Quickly? I'll make a motion to recess for 3 minutes.
I will second.
Motion is second to recess briefly for 3 minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Good morning. This is the formal meeting for the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors for Monday, December 13th, 2021. We are on the fourth floor of the courthouse, and we are also present with several guests via Zoom. At this time, we begin our agenda with an opportunity for public comments. If anyone would like to address the board on matters which are on the agenda but are not subject to public hearing, if you're here for a public hearing matter, you can speak during that public hearing. But if you're here and you wish to speak about other matters, this is the opportunity to do that. You can go to the podium and state your name and address and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. If you are with us on Zoom, you would raise your hand in the reaction button on the bottom of your screen or enter a comment in chat and we will unmute you and provide that opportunity. We will hold a moment to see if anyone wishes to address the board this morning. No one is approaching the podium here in the boardroom. Is there anyone, no? And no one via Zoom. Very good. So the first item on our agenda, proclamations. We do not have one this morning. First item for action is the minutes of December 6th.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. We do not have consent items, nor do we have any procurement procedures this morning. So we'll go immediately to item number 5, which are our public hearings. The first item for action is the proof of publication for the public hearings that was included in our packet.
I will make a motion to approve the proof of publications for the zoning amendments.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Now we are to public hearings. They appear to be regarding zoning matters. Good morning, Tammy, our zoning administrator. Welcome.
You're all ready to get going?
We are, so.
Is to allow the construction of a new home for Amanda, who is a shareholder and full-time employee of her family farm. The property is located 0.25 miles north of the city of Cascade along Farley Road and is legally described as the northwest of the southeast, Section 30, T87 North, R1W, Whitewater Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. This property is owned by Knuth Farms, Inc. Zoning in the area includes A1 agricultural to the north, the south, the east, and the west, R1 rural residential to the south, M1 light industrial to the south, M2 heavy industrial to the east, and the R1 rural residential to the south was on zoning case number 9015 of 78, and that was to allow for the construction of a single-family home. The M1 light industrial to the south on zoning case number 9003 of 80 was to allow 8 acres to be rezoned for a precast company. And the M1 light industrial to the south on zoning case number 1024 of 97 was to allow 11 additional acres to be rezoned to expand the existing precast business. And the M2 heavy industrial to the east on zoning case number 0507 of 15 was to allow 2.85 acres to be rezoned for a propane storage only. There are no previous rezoning cases attached to this property. There are no special use permits attached to the property. One rezoning notification letter was sent to the property owners and the city of Cascade was notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agricultural and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7 may apply to this case. So this is...
Tammy, can I just have you pause for a minute? I'm having trouble hearing you well. There's one of the machines on in the back, I believe, one of our HVACs running, and then can you move the microphone toward you somehow?
Yep.
And
Sorry
just
about that.
recognize that it's sounding very flat and it's hard to discern.
Sure,
Thank
sure,
you.
Sure.
Much better.
Is that
There you
better?
go.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you can see, that's the area that we're looking to have rezoned, which is, across the road from the family business. So she's looking to locate closer to the family business because she is a full-time employee of that farming business and farming operation. And this was voted by the zoning board. At that time, there were 6 members present, and they all voted in favor of it.
Who was absent from that meeting?
Ooh, you're going to ask me that? And I'm not 100%
This is the
sure.
kind of thing that Catherine Caitlin typically will have issue with.
Give me 1 second. I apologize for not having that in front of me.
It's okay.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
That's fine, no problem. Did you have anything further, or we can go into?
Questions for me?
Nope, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion is second to open public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We are now in public hearing on the, this matter. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? You can do so by going to the podium, and just introduce yourself. And, if anyone in the Zoom world would like to address the board about this matter with comments or questions, concerns, you would do so again by raising your hand or entering a comment in chat, and we would, unmute you. We'll let those be the rules for all of our public hearings this morning. No one is stepping forward, so, do we want to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now back to the Board of Supervisors. Did we have other concerns or discussion?
I do not. I'd make a motion to approve the rezoning.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 And make a motion to suspend the requirement that this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
I make a motion that the amendment be adopted and that the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes on the official zoning map, and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Our next zoning case is EC 11-25-21, Philip and Colleen McCarthy, A1 Agriculture to A2 Agricultural Residential. Tammy,
Yeah.
over to you for prep.
The applicants are requesting to rezone from A1 Agricultural to A2 Agricultural Residential, 2.84 acres to be allowed to separate an existing home and buildings from the crop ground for the sale purposes. This property is located 3.54 miles northeast of the city of Bernard along Larkin Road and is legally described as the southwest of the Southwest, Section 7, T87 North, R2E, Washington Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. This property is owned by Philip and Colleen McCarthy. Zoning in the area includes A1 agriculture to the north, the south, the east, and the west. There are no previous rezoning cases attached to this property. There are no special use permits attached to this property. 4 rezoning notification letters were sent to the property owners, and there was no city notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agriculture and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7 may apply to this case. So this is a case where there's an existing farmstead, and they are looking to sell off the farmstead and keep the farm ground around it. So they're looking to get rid of the farm home. This is, again, an older gentleman, and they just don't want to maintain keeping this farmhouse anymore.
Comments, questions?
I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We are in public hearing. If anyone in the public wishes to address the board, you may do so at this time. And we'll hold a moment to see if anyone has discussion. This was also, I think, a 6-0 as well, was it
Yes.
not?
Every one of these cases today would
Yeah.
be.
Hello, Ann. This is Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa.
Good morning, Dave. We hear you. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Just working with Phil. He actually and his wife actually acquired this farm from his brother when he passed away. So they're basically they already have an existing farmstead directly east of here along the next gravel road to the east. So ultimately he's setting this thing up so if anything ever happens to them, or if he gets to the point where he can't maintain this thing, he needs to sell that other house. So that's basically why we're getting this thing separated out. Ultimately all the farm ground that he currently runs is rented out. So I guess that's why we're here. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Dave? No. Look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. We're back to the board for any discussion or action.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning.
I will second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to suspend the requirement this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
I will second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I'll make a motion that the amendment be adopted, that the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes on the official zoning map, and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
And I will second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion also carries. Our next zoning case is, zoning case 11-26-21, Nathan Kutch, A1 agricultural to A2 agricultural residential.
Okay. The applicant is requesting rezone from A1 agriculture to A2 agricultural residential, 1 acre, to be allowed to replace an existing mobile home with a new home for financing purposes. This property is located 0.50 miles east of the city of Burkittsville along South Mound Road and is legally described as Lot 1 of Clifford South Mound Addition, Section 21, T90 North, R1E, Jefferson Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. This property is owned by Nathan Kutch. Zoning in the area includes A1 agricultural to the north, the east, and the west, C1 Conservancy to the south, R2 single-family residential to the south. There are no previous rezoning cases attached to this property, and there are no special use permits attached to this property, and 7 rezoning notification letters were sent to the property owners, and the city of Burkittsville was notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agriculture and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7 may apply to this case. This young gentleman is a small farm operation, and he has an existing mobile home there that he is going to replace with a regular home, and for financing for the bank, they want that lot separated. So nothing here will change, except we'll be putting on a new home to replace the mobile home that's existing there.
Would anyone like to open the public hearing?
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
I will second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now in public hearing. If anyone would like to address the board, now is the time to do so.
Again, Ann, Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa. Working with Nathan here, he's basically his intent is he has no intent of selling any of this ground. Just basically the trailer is deteriorated to the point that it's uninhabitable. So looking to basically borrow the money to reconstruct construct a new home in basically the same location as the existing trailer home, and that's basically the simple situation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them again.
Dave, this is Harley. The trailer is kind of in the same location that old farmhouse was in, isn't it?
I guess I didn't have any experience there before I was out here, so I couldn't even. My assumption is yes, just because of the proximity to the buildings and stuff. But I do not have no recollection of an older home on that property. I didn't grow up in that area, I guess.
I recall the farmhouse. Well, the farmhouse burned down a few years back. I remember that, and then he moved the trailer in. But I'm thinking it's probably in the same area, but it doesn't make any difference. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments from the public? Seeing nothing, looking for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
I will second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning.
I will second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to suspend the requirement this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
I will second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll make a motion that the amendment be adopted and the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes in the official zoning map, and the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
I will second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries as well. Our final zoning case is number 11-27-21, Stephen Wilward and Eric Leahy, A1 Agriculture to A2 Agricultural Residential.
The applicants are requesting rezone from A1 agricultural to A2 agricultural residential, 2.83 acres, to be allowed to let Eric Leahy build a farm home on the property that he is purchasing, and he will continue to use the property for agricultural purposes. This property is located 2.54 miles south of the city of Epworth along Placid Road and is legally described as the northeast of the Northwest, Section 35, T88 North, R1W, Taylor Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. This property is owned by Stephen and Don Wilward, and zoning in the area includes A1 agricultural to the north, the south, the east, and the west, R3 single-family residential to the south, and the R3 single-family residential to the south was zoning case number 9009 of 70, and that was to allow for 95,810 square feet to be rezoned for future residential homes. There are no rezoning cases attached to this property. There are no special use permits attached to this property. 3 rezoning notification letters were sent to the property owners, and there was no city notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agriculture and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7 may apply to this case. This is a situation where this young gentleman is coming in to purchase a little piece of this land, but he does own in the area a lot of farm ground, and this is where he's looking to expand into his farming. But he qualified under what we call our farm exemption. He filled out the application and meets farming. He just doesn't have a lot of property in this area yet.
Very good. Did anyone wish to make a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. I will second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We are now in public hearing. If anyone wishes to address the board with comments or questions, now would be the time to do so.
Again, Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa. Yeah, working with Eric to get this property set up, number one, so he can purchase from the Wilwards everything east of Placid Road that the Wilwards currently own that they're selling to Eric, and then is kind of going to be part of the platting. And then on this property, his intent is to build a new home on kind of a rocky knob there just east of Placid Road, south of the creek. It's fairly thin soiled. There's actually some limestone right on near the surface there. Seemed like the place that they wanted to build their residence. Currently, they live right in the Placid, in the community of Placid. I think they just sold that home and are looking to build on this property. So I guess I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Any questions for Dave?
I don't have any.
Question for Tammy related to the, this case related to the previous cases that didn't have to have the farm exemption sheet. Can you talk me through?
Sure. So in this area, he doesn't have a lot of farm ground. So this would be a situation where if someone just wanted to come in here and buy a few acres off of farmland and they didn't qualify as a farm for farm purposes, we would not be approving that. We would not ask for you to approve that. But in this gentleman's case, he was able to, we asked for what we call a Schedule F for taxes, and then they have another form they fill out that shows that they are farming and plan and intend on continuing to farm. And he does have a lot of other farm ground that he farms. So that's what we look at in these kind of situations, because he does not currently, own this land and would, we just wouldn't have anybody just come in and want to just take off a couple acres off of farm ground anymore unless we are relating that on these A2 situations to a future farmer or someone who is currently farming.
Okay, a couple numbers just floating around. It's more for my probably education.
Sure.
So I see in the description, if it's right, that there's 75 acres surveyed, and then we talk about, lot 1 is 42 acres, and then further down in the application, it says something about a smaller parcel. So maybe Dave or otherwise, so what, isn't 40 acres the requirement? And this seems like it fits the requirement, so I'm just confused on the,
So this piece that you're looking at in the blue line, okay, that is, Dave, that's the 70, or the large amount of the whole land, and we're going to be selling just east, right?
Correct. Basically, we're surveying two 40-acre parcels, but we're splitting them instead of north and south of each other. We're splitting them along the existing occupied line, center line of Placid Road, which physically they're already divided that direction. We're just reconfiguring them to match the center line of the road. So the Wilwards currently have a house on Lot 1, which they're going to retain at this point in time, along with some additional farm ground that they have actually west of Placid Road in addition to this. And then Lot 2, which is going to be, is on the survey that we're going to be you'll ultimately see. He's buying approximately 33 acres from the Wilwards, of which he's going to finance 30 of that as farm ground and about 2.8 acres, 1.90 acres taxable for his new home. This Lot 2 also, the property east of the road also has other ag buildings on it. It has a cattle feed lot and some storage for grain on it as well that he's purchasing.
And Supervisor Wickham, so if this was not meeting our current platting status in ag, it says we have to have a minimum of 35 acres. So in this case, this plat coming forward was not going to be a minimum of 35 acres, but we were able to prove that he is farming, and that's how we can do that. So if someone has a 20-acre piece and they're farming that, and they show that they're farming that, we are able to do that with our farm exemption process. Does that explain what you were asking?
I think so.
Yeah, basically what it comes down to is this is not the only ground that he owns. He's basically going to use this as his, I'm going to call it his headquarters or his base for his farming operation. And I think he is interested in buying additional ground from Wilwards as, if it comes available or, depending on price, obviously all, but his goal is to basically set up the hub of his operation at this location.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
We are still in public hearing. If anyone wishes to address the board about this matter, you may do so at this time.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We are back to the board. Is there any further discussion or action?
I would make a motion to approve the rezoning.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to suspend the requirement that this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I make a motion that the amendment be adopted and that the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes on the official zoning map and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next on our agenda are the approval of plats. The first is a resolution seeking approval of the final plat of Briner subdivision.
Yep.
Briner's Bridge site.
Yes, okay.
Plat 2.
The property is owned by Robert and Lita Briner and Robert M. and Tina Briner, and is located 0.89 miles northeast of the city of Graff along Graff Road and Lita Lane, with a total of 37.85 acres surveyed. This property is zoned A1 agricultural and R1 residential on zoning case number 0614 of 21. The purpose of this plat is to be allowed to expand Lot 1 to include the sheds and the property that Robert M. and Tina Briner already use and maintain. The survey creates 2 lots. Lot 1 is a total of 2.23 acres surveyed with an existing home and shed, and it will remain in current ownership and residential use. And Lot 2 is a total of 35.62 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. And Lot 1 will use an existing residential access off of Graff Road, and Lot 2 will use an existing field entrance off of Graff Road. There were no additions or corrections required on this plat, and the mortgage holder's acknowledgement is signed and attached. Some of the signatures are over 60 days old, and they included the surveyor, May 25th of 2021, engineer, June 28th, 2021, county planning and zoning, June 15th of 2021, Platts officer, September 7th, 2021, city of Graff, July 13th, 2021, Owner's consent, July 9th of 2021. Attorney's opinion, September 13th of 2021. County assessor, June 28th, 2021. County health, July 9th of 2021, and county treasurer, July 9th of 2021. This plat has been reviewed by myself as Platts officer. It has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. This was a case that we did a rezoning in June, and it's just taken them this long to get all the signatures and everything they needed to bring the plat forward to you.
Are there any questions?
I have nothing.
Nor do I. I will make a motion to approve the final plat as presented.
I will second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. That plat is approved. Next is a resolution regarding the final plat of Dietz Farm Subdivision, Plat 6.
Okay. This property is owned by Deeds Century Farm LLC and is located 0.58 miles northwest of the city of Asbury along Lewis Road with a total of 15.282 acres surveyed. The property is zoned R2 single-family residential. The purpose of this plat is to create a lot that will be sold for construction of a new home. The survey creates two lots. Lot 1 is a total of 1.377 acres surveyed, and it will be sold for the construction of a new home. And Lot 2 is a total of 13.905 acres surveyed and will be remaining in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 1 is a pending residential entrance with the county engineer's office on Lewis Road, and Lot 2 will use an existing shared entrance off of Lewis Road. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat. There are no mortgages on the property, and all the signatures are current. This plat's been reviewed by myself as Platts officer, has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. So this is just a division for a new home on a residentially zoned property.
Does anyone have any questions or wish to take action?
I'd make a motion to approve the final plat of Dietz Farm subdivision.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. That concludes the plats for the day as well.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tammy, for being here. We move on our agenda. The next items are action items. The first is a resolution approving the hiring of the deputies, assistants, and clerks, and they are on the screen that is being screen shared right now in the boardroom. Does anyone have any questions or wish to take action?
I make a motion to approve the, hires.
I will second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Our next is a motion approving the supervisor's intent to appoint the Dubuque County Treasurer. Good morning. I see Randy is here with us. I appreciate you being here. This is the resolution that's been prepared. Maybe just ask the auditor, Kevin Dragato, is present. This is the way forward for us with the timing, correct?
That is correct. If you pass this notice of intent, it will be published in the papers on the 22nd of December, which will be within our time frame to appoint on January 3rd.
Is there anyone who wishes to take action or have any questions about this?
I have no questions. I'd make, motion to approve the resolution.
And I will second that.
A motion is second to approve the resolution, giving notice of our intent to appoint the next Dubuque County Treasurer. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. As we move through the process, I appreciate the auditor's help making sure we get our dates right. So thank you. The next resolution concerns an action that we are going to have a work session on at 10 a.m. I would be looking for a motion to table at this time.
I will make a motion to table till our upcoming work session.
I will second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. We'll table that until a little later this morning. Next is a resolution approving the purchase of service projects that were discussed at our meeting last Monday and agreed upon. Did anyone have any comments or wish to take action?
I'd make a motion to approve the resolution for Dubuque County purchase service projects.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. Also just recognizing all the hard work that went into getting us to this point, so thank you for that. The next matter is a resolution to approve the courthouse painting services contract. And, this is not a work session, so it's final action, is that correct? But there were other documents in our packet. Did anyone have any questions on this matter or wish to take action?
I have no questions. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the courthouse painting service contract.
I will second.
A motion and a second to approve the interesting color palette. It is going to be very nice. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. The next resolution, I think is another matter that's going to come before us. It's the opioid settlement documents. That will be a work session a little later this morning with the county attorney. It would be appropriate, I think, to table at this time.
And make a motion to table?
And I will second that.
Motion and second to table until later this morning. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries as well. That is tabled. The next resolution is approving payments for, and also I'm going to sign a maintenance agreement if we agree for this Eco Services project. Is this also, Ed, something we're going to table? Is that correct?
Good morning, Supervisors. This is Ed Raber. In conversations after this went to publication, middle of last week, Eric Schmeckel, the Watershed Director, encountered a couple things that he wanted to be a little bit more sure about in terms of who was signing this and some other things. So we're asking that we table this until next week or take no action. I think we'll have two agreements. One of the other projects that you had approved a while ago, we'll have one of those back for next week, so probably two next week. But I apologize, we just had some things he wants to be more sure of in this.
Do you feel confident you'll be back next week if we table this, or do you want us to just take no action?
Just taking no action is fine, I think, and we'll just bring it back. It'll be republished next week. It may look exactly this way. There were just some things that he wanted to make sure that we're doing, that he was doing correctly with the producer that we did this for, the landowner.
So hearing those comments, I would take no action on this matter unless someone's looking to table. Shall we move on?
Fine either way.
We'll take no action on this resolution, and it will come back to us when it's prepared. Next is communications. We have two manure management plans that have been received in the auditor's office.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the Epper and Rovis's manure management plans.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. We now turn to various appointments. And we did have a lengthy memo in our packet as well. Take a moment here to get organized. Many of the applications on some of these are I'm going to use the word old, just because they came in. One of them is actually dated December 19th. As we sit here on December 13th, December 19th of last year. So some of the applications are older than others. So that was just a noteworthy, I guess. We'll try to go through this in an organized way. Did anyone have anything by way of general comments before we begin down the list?
I've gone through a lot of all of the applications. One of the issues that I brought up in the past is with the number of qualified applicants we have. I think we should, if someone's term is up, replace them with someone new to keep the applications coming in. We're not going to let anybody new come in. We're going to quit getting applications. We have a good problem going on. I guess I just think we got to give more people opportunities instead of keeping the same people in the same spot over and over and over again. If there's applications, which we have in the Board of Health and Conservation are both the same.
Yeah, I was very pleased with the number of applicants that we had as well. And so, it's great to see that people apply and are familiar with it. And I think we've done a good job, and I know Supervisor McDonough, this was one of your priorities to get some of the boards and commissions a little more active, and I think it's working.
With regard, I appreciate those comments, and with regard to just generally, many of the folks who are before us as incumbents, so to speak, or currently on the board, have served very limited time. So one of the things that I look for is how long have they served on a board or commission, and then just kind of looking to see where the board and commission is, you know, what are they faced with today? If things are fairly routine, maybe it's time to replace someone who served a good long time, but otherwise I think there's a learning curve and a cadence to kind of doing some of this. You know, people who show up are really super important if they come to the meetings and give good input. So that's another thing that I kind of balance as well. Like, it's a new folks, new perspective, but the newness comes with maybe an uncertainty as compared to if someone routinely attends. So,
If you're referring to the Board of Health.
well, let's just turn our page right to that, shall we? The first one before us, I think, is the Board of Health. It was the first item on the memo, and we do have two incumbents there who have served. Diane Pape-Freiberger is the vice chair, and she actually, I think, has served a full term, which is very unusual on our health board, that we have someone who served a full term. And then Amy Crow-Sunleaf would be a person who's joined to fill out the remainder of a term. So both of those individuals, you know, we can all describe the Board of Health in various ways. I thank them for stepping forward at this time, but I also think that we're faced with the process of hiring a new director. So having some longevity, even if it's a term of a year, has value to me, because they're not starting brand new, fresh as we try to organize ourselves for whatever interviewing is. Those are my thoughts about that.
Just make sure we're clear, and then maybe staff can jump in to make sure that we're accurate. So we're appointing 3 from the Board of Health, is that correct? And so we have 2 with a term ending on end of the year 24 and 1 23.
Right. One will complete the term of Katie Jones, who was elected to the school board and resigned.
And that's the 2023 one, most likely?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. And on the applicants, they don't specify their term, is that correct? I didn't see that. Okay, all right. Yeah, so we definitely, you know, I would like to thank the Board of Health members that have served. It's been very difficult times, a lot of testing topics related to the pandemic that weren't always straightforward. So definitely appreciate anyone serving on the Board of Health, and appreciate the applicants. There's a lot of really good ones from the private sector, and certainly many from the medical field as well. So we've got a lot of good applicants to go through. You know, in addition to the 2 incumbents, I've got 2, 4, about 6 on my short list. So I've got plenty that I think are qualified, that I've kind of reviewed and given my best, you know, vantage point that would serve well.
Right, right.
So I'm not sure how you want to go forward. Eventually, if we find a match, that's kind of how it happens. But having 6 and mentioning 2 incumbents is 8, so that doesn't necessarily help get to 3 real quick.
Right. Well, again, I think no matter what we do today, we're going to have at least one new person. And so that will be one new person on the Board of Health who has to go through the training with Iowa Department of Public Health and be prepared to fully participate. And the agenda coming to us next on the agenda is going to be a personnel requisition to post the listing for the public health director. But the Board of Health has it even posted as an interim director on their meeting for Wednesday night. So I think the Board of Health itself is without clear consensus what they're going to do. So I'm just concerned about adding too many new people, honestly, when we are at a critical point. And once every decade or 2 decades, we actually look for a new director of public health. So, I mean, it would be my thought to keep the incumbents. They have varied experience, and they have both weathered citizen comment at public hearing and have actually reapplied to serve. And I think in today's world, that, to me, that has meaning.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you said. You know, and I know during this last, 18 months, I've had numerous conversations with you know, Diane Pape-Freiberger and other board members, probably her more than any. And they were on the weekend, they were at night, and she was putting in the time and energy and you know, commitment to see what we could do and to figure out how to keep us as safe as we can and make the right decisions in a really unprecedented event.
Right.
So for me, it is hard to replace her. That said, when I've kind of sat back and thought about it, you know, I think participation from the citizenry and new people on boards are helpful. And I've advocated that on a few other boards that we sit on that are stagnant and defined. I will be, I'll be sad if Diane Pape-Freiberger is not on the Board of Health, but I'm confident that someone can step in and fill her shoes. And so I would be looking to probably add 3 new members myself, you know, have confidence that those people and their applications and their experience will also carry the day for the Board of Health.
If I could, before we move on there, express with regard to both of these women. Right now, we have 3 men on the board and 1 woman on the board. So we do need to do things with gender balance. But both of them have done extraordinary amounts of education and outside work. As you described, Diane Pape-Freiberger's interaction with us as boards of supervisors, it's been extraordinary, beyond anything I could have imagined. Amy Crowe-Sunleaf is in the middle of one of the highest level brain health projects, short of our CEO of our region, that I've ever seen. She has a proposal for a brain health diversion court. Literally at 10 o'clock, they're going to meet with the regional, with May Hinchin, to see if it's something that might have legs inside the region. They are doing as a volunteer. She is doing extraordinary work that is professional grade level. You'd have to hire somebody to do this work at probably $70,000 to $90,000 of what she's doing as a volunteer. So when you silence those voices on our board, I fear we're telling our citizens that if you do things that are unique to your personal circumstances and your professionalism, that's not what we want you to do. I think that you're looking at 2 people who bring tremendous professional background, and they're giving it to us as volunteers. So we can say thank you for your service, but I just think it's very short-sighted to say that in the name of new, fresh faces, that's the way to proceed with the Board of Health right now.
My remarks were to serving full terms. Amy has not served a full term. She's only been there 6 months. I would be willing to reappoint Amy for a full term.
Okay. Would you want to make that as a motion?
I would make a motion to approve or appoint Amy Crowe-Sunleaf to a full term expiring 12/31 of 24.
Would you be a second to that?
If we're in discussion, no. I will not second that.
I will second.
Yeah.
So we'll move to discussion.
Yeah, in discussion, certainly I would, appreciate her involvement. And I think, everything you said, once again, is true, their amount of expertise. And so, but it doesn't prohibit, citizens from still being involved. And so, I've seen in different forums where citizens have come forward. There's nothing that would prohibit them from working and collaborating with members of the Board of Health outside of a quorum. And I do see that at Conservation and a few other boards I serve on. And so that's the first part. They still can participate. They just don't have a vote. The second thing to understand, and hopefully every applicant understands, these are term limited. That's stated. So it's not a surprise. We're not just, it's not you come into the office one day and you're fired. So, this is a process, and we do have term limits, and those term endings, no limits. I'm very much a term limit guy, but that's another topic. They do have term endings, and so I think that expectation has been set up, and obviously the board then makes those decisions. And so, I certainly wish the best for the Board of Health, and Amy Crowe-Sunleaf has been wonderful, along with Diane Pape-Freiberger. But after my kind of thinking through the process, I think I would rather err on the side of additional participation from the citizenry. I'll be voting no, but it's not because of the applicant.
And in discussion, I value their expertise differently, perhaps, at this time, because of the amount of turnover that we have had in the Board of Health. If someone has completed a full term, I think that is extraordinary. And if they have done that in a way that is professional and with professional competence coming to us, that speaks volumes to me. And as to term limits, we all have term limits up here too. And so we'll see come March who with term limits is going to throw their hat back into the ring as well. So, but as to the motion regarding Amy Crow-Sunleaf, I would ask for those who, if there's other discussion, let's not cut that short with regard to her application.
No, I think we have consensus. We encourage the board to move forward.
Motion, the second with regard to the reappointment of Amy Crow-Sunleaf. All in favor say aye.
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 Nay.
Motion will carry 2-1. If we are, it seems to me that the reappointment of Diane Pape-Freiberger is not a certainty, and I find that probably as surprising as anything that's occurred recently in the Dubuque County business, certainly with regard to volunteers. We will be losing a tremendous asset if she is not reappointed. I would, before we go to that, though, could people please give me who it is that they feel has more qualifications or would do a superior job?
Maybe I'll comment first by, way of reference. So I'm on the Conservation Board, appointed by my colleagues, Board of Supervisors. And whether I'm on this board or not on this board, if they choose a different applicant, for me, when my term is expired, hopefully they'll thank me for my services, and I will understand that it was one term and they're giving somebody else a second shot. There are a lot of good people in our county, and Diane Pape-Freiberger is really one of them, but there are a lot of other good people. And I think when you have 13 people that raise their hands, fill out an application, and go through this public process of name calling, all good names, I think we should give them a shot. And so it's for me, it's difficult, but that's kind of where I thought through, and those are maybe my final comments on the issue.
And so who is the person that you think there's two more individuals that we would need to appoint?
As I mentioned, I had 6 on a short list, and so if we're looking for a connection, I have Marsha Horowitz as one. Want my other one?
Sure.
Tara Cruzy as well. That's another one, and I had 4 others that I think were qualified. I don't know any of these people personally, so I'm going through their recommendations and their information related to their background in the medical field.
I have personal experience with Jess Smith, and she would be an eminently qualified person also to be on the Board of Health.
It's on my short list as well.
Mine also.
So, okay, we have
Should we move on that then, if we have consensus about that? So we wish to make a motion appointing Jess Smith to the Board of Health.
I would make the motion to appoint Jessica Smith to the Board of Health.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries.
Chairman Dinner, can you
That would be
indicate a term for that one?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Term would be ending 12/31 of 24.
So that's a full term then?
Yes.
Okay, so,
And the last one would be for the term ending 12/31 of 23, which would be Katie Jones's position, correct?
well, let's talk about that for a moment. So I would not, that's fine. So do you have those terms down, Don? So now we're talking about someone who's going to be appointed to fulfill the remainder term for Katie Jones. And when we, another thing I'll tell you about Diane Pape-Freiberger is that she lives in rural Dubuque. She lives in the unincorporated areas, and that's been a concern we have heard repeated about the Board of Health, that everybody lives inside the city of Dubuque, everyone's connected to a hospital. That's a concern that I think we should also explore. You know, she lives in rural Dubuque. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Diane Pape-Freiberger to the Board of Health. I think she has earned the continuation if she fills out the term of Katie Jones. Katie Jones is actually one of her references on her application. I think perhaps that's fitting. Does anyone wish to make a second to that motion? That motion dies for a lack of a second. So we are on to another new individual. Some things that you need to know in some of the contacts I've had with individuals, for instance, Mike Capicius is leaving very soon. He's going to be unavailable until into March. So when you look at some of these candidates and you say, if we haven't talked to a particular person to know their strengths or their weaknesses, their level of commitment, if they're still interested in being on this board, some of these applications are very old. They go back into March. And if we've not actually had contact with them to be certain they wish to be on our board and that they wish to help us choose the new Director of Public Health, we might want to even consider tabling this last position to be certain.
Seems that you have the wisdom of this board, so do you have any other recommendations other than tabling? I'll defer that to you for another name. I've mentioned two and have agreed on a third. If not, I think we have enough information in front of us to make appointments. If they decline, then obviously we'll be back at it, but I wouldn't anticipate that. So my thing stands, do you have any recommendation for the third, or is it?
I would ask Supervisor Potas, what are your thoughts?
I have Marcia Horwitz on my short list also. I think Jay had down, she come with a reference from.
She's a retired physician here in Dubuque.
Mm-hmm.
She come with a referral from Dr. Hendrik Schultz, who's also on the board.
She would be retired from Medical Associates, which would also be what Dr. Hendrik Schultz is from Medical Associates. That's fine. There's some need to have balance in the medical community, but it's an unprecedented time. So
the other one was Tara Cruz from Piasta.
On my list as well. So
I actually don't know that application. Let me search here for a moment. What are her qualifications?
I'm trying to look it up there. There were
Sorry,
several.
I'm faced with, obviously, tons here. Tara Cruz. She does live in Piasta. It's an application from March 5th. She's a risk manager, patient safety officer, and accreditation program manager at Unity Point, and was a respiratory therapist for 20 years prior to that. So she's part of the Unity Point system and is in administration at this time. What do my colleagues wish to do?
I'm comfortable making a motion for Marcia Horowitz to be appointed to the Board of Health for the final remaining term, which ends in 2023.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Marcia Horowitz to the Board of Health. Is there any further discussion?
Thank all the applicants. I greatly appreciate their involvement and their willingness to serve in a voluntary position.
I'd definitely like to thank those that have served and thank all the applicants that are putting in, that are interested in these positions. I feel we're doing the right thing by keeping the list moving, that everybody gets a chance.
And I guess I can't do more than continue just to express my dismay that we are removing Diane Pape-Freiberger, that ending her term. She's actively requested that. I don't know Dr. Horowitz, but I will be joining so that there's consensus on the board. Excuse me. We do need to move forward with a unanimity, I think, moving toward the task before the Board of Health. So all in favor of the appointment of Dr. Marcia Horowitz, please say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. It is unanimous. All right. Well, let's see how we do with the rest of our appointments. The next board is the Catfish Creek Watershed Management Authority. I guess I would ask my colleagues, we have two incumbents there who have asked to continue to serve. They're incumbents, they've completed full terms. Are we also going to replace both of them with Joe Dolan and Mary Radloff? Because that's what we're faced with. We have two new perspectives and two current board members. So I would ask my colleagues, how do you feel about that?
I would stand by what I stated in the first one. If they've served a full term and we have qualified applicants, that the applicants should have the opportunity to serve also.
Supervisor Wickham?
Agreed.
So I'm looking for motions.
You have two positions to fill, right?
That we do.
I'll make a motion to appoint Joseph Dolan.
I will second.
And under discussion, Joe is a retired science teacher, quite good. He will be a good addition to the board. I have no hesitancy in supporting that. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries.
And I will make a motion to appoint my former Conservation Board member, Mary Radoff.
I will second that motion. Mary
I thought she
Radloff.
was the one that was already on it, or,
No, Rachel is.
oh, okay, I'm
Rachel
sorry.
might even be
Rachel's
the
the
current
chair.
board chair.
My misunderstanding. Yeah, well, you seconded, okay.
I have seconded Mary Radloff. Is there further discussion? We have a motion and a second to appoint Mary Radloff to the Catfish Creek Water Management Authority. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Dawn, we have terms on them that are the same? Okay, very good. Next is the Conservation Board.
The job gets easier from 13 to 20.
On the Conservation Board, this is the current chair is Cindy Gatto did not choose to renew her application. She's currently the board chair. But I would draw my colleagues' attention to a young person I did talk to last night. I'm going to have a senior moment and blow her name. Jackie, Karen, I think is her name.
Kerr,
Pardon?
Jacqueline Kerr.
Yeah. Dynamic application, really interesting. Been in our community under 3 years. I just think that's perspective. She's got a biologist degree. She's done riparian research. Really good applicant if you're looking for somebody new with fresh perspective on the Conservation Board. I would support that candidate. And I do believe we need to feel that needs to be a woman. We have many applicants, but not as many of the applicants are women.
It does need to be a female, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacqueline did make my list, so.
I thought her application was wonderful. I had a short list of others, including Tom Greep, Nathan Gilmore, and Mark Wagner, all I'm familiar with and have done a tremendous job. Well, let me rephrase that. Have really good resumes that we saw and good applicants.
Okay,
And
we
I've
do need to
spoken
do
to all
that.
three of those,
We need to be gender balanced, so it should be a female.
making my comments, but thank you for that correction.
I would make the motion to appoint Jacqueline Kerr to the Conservation Board.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to appoint Jacqueline Kerr. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. The next board is Disabilities Council, but we don't have any applicants. Next is the Eminent Domain Compensation Commission. The application is Mike Capicius, and his application is very precursory filled out for this, but he's applied for 2 other positions, so all of the attachments and references are contained, I think, in his application to the Board of Health. So it's all there. I think I spoke to him last night. He's got a lot of good experience with regard to taxation, so he would be, I think, certainly a worthy person to be on the Eminent Domain Compensation Committee. He understands that commission does not meet very often, and that's fine.
I would make the motion to appoint Mike Capacious to the Eminent Domain.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. The next board before us is, we don't have any applications for EMS Advisory Committee, so we'll move on to Equal Opportunity Committee. We have one applicant, a young woman who's employed at Clark University. And I saw her application, Angela Ventris from rural Dubuque. If we want to appoint Angela, we need to pick a term. That's where there's a variety of terms.
We have 10 vacancies, it reads.
Plenty of room there to add a new voice.
I don't see the terms, but,
We have
oh,
June
there,
of
thank you.
22, 23, and 24. I expect that commission will be busier when we get our things the first of the year underway, so very good.
I'll make a motion to appoint Angela Ventris to a term ending 6/30/2023.
You want to make it for a full term, Jay, to go to 24?
I thought to try to speed it up and maybe have more conversations, so it just doesn't sit there for 4 years. And the other one was a little too quick, only 6 months,
Yeah.
so that was my logic, but.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Are you fine with that term ending, Supervisor Powell?
Yeah, that's fine.
Did you wish to make a second?
I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. That appointment is confirmed. You have the term done. Very good. The Historic Preservation Commission, I'll make a motion to appoint Chris Soter, one of our own.
I will.
Just on a question on that, before you do that, said there were 2 applications?
That's a clerical error. There was only
Okay,
one in the
I
packet.
wasn't sure, I just wanted to make sure, but.
Is that right, just one? So I'll second Chris Soter.
Any further discussion? I don't know if you had a chance to see the interview he gave with Heritage Works when they did the courthouse. It was fabulous.
Mhm.
It's on YouTube if you get a chance to go back and see that. Did just a great job. So, motion is second to support the appointment of Chris Soter to the Historic Preservation Commission. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next is the Makoka River Watershed Authority. We have one application, and that is, again, someone that we know well, Zach Tim, who works with our watershed program at the county level, has applied to be on that commission.
I would make the motion to approve Zach Timms for the Makoka River Watershed Authority.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Next committee is the Crest Manor Advisory Board of Directors. As we look at those applicants, I supported the application of Joshua Feldman. The last time there was an opening, and we appointed previous supervisor Dave Baker to continue on that board. I have confirmed with Josh that he is still interested in serving there. He has done great work. I've been to many meetings over the years where he's asked good questions. He's a valuable member of that team. That is before the discussion that you both had today about new people, new faces. So I'm not sure what you wish to do there, but I would make a motion to approve Joshua Feldman to the Crest Manor Advisory Board of Directors. That fails for lack of a second. Other individuals that I've spoken to on that list of the individuals, I've spoke to Sherry Jacobs. She's from Asbury. She just retired this past year, in 2019, from the BVMs at Mount Carmel. She was their director and oversaw the creation of the Caritatis House, which is one of their new care centers. And she's very interested in serving on this committee. Her application is quite old, but we did speak and she's interested. So I would make a motion to appoint Sherry Jacobs to the Crest Manor Advisory Board of Directors.
I will second that.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion with regard to this application? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Do we have to worry about gender balance there? Because our other male candidate is Mike Capicius, who's gone for several months now. The either gender, so we can look at Susan Faulkner or Mary Peters. I have not connected with Susan Faulkner. She has tried several times to contact me, though, and it's just been inopportune, but, yes? So we do need to appoint a male. Okay. What do my colleagues wish to do?
I would make a motion to appoint Mike Capacious.
I will second that.
Under discussion, I cannot support that. He is not available to serve on this board until spring. We could possibly go back and reconsider Mr. Feldman. Those are my comments. If you feel that way, you can vote no on this pending application. A motion is second regarding appointing Mike Apicius. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. That passes with a 2-to-1. The next committee before us is the Watershed Working Group. We have one application, but we're seeking 2 positions, and I asked Ed if you confirmed that with Eric. Do we have 2 openings?
Eric is checking on that.
Okay.
I don't have that. We'll have some clarification.
The applicant before us is Lily Behringer. She currently sits on this board. She's a phenomenal cattle farmer on a heritage farm in Cascade. The term that she has served has been very limited because it was just created last year. So I don't know what my colleagues wish to do on that application. She does currently serve.
If there's no other applicants, I'll obviously make the motion to approve Lily Behringer to the Watershed Working Group.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. And the last one is to the Zoning Commission, Mr. George, and he is the only applicant. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I will make a motion to appoint David George.
I will second.
And I believe he does live in the unincorporated area. His address here is Piasta, but it's unincorporated. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. And, Dawn, will you, just ask that I be copied in on letters of appointment that go out? I'd like to make sure that they go out timely. Thank you. Returning to our agenda, the last item here is the medical examiners. And that is not actually an appointment. I think we discussed last week during our administrative conference that that's an employee position. Is that correct?
That is correct. Both the medical examiner and the deputy medical examiner are paid positions here. So those will come in the form of a resolution for an appointment for those.
So we should take no action on item number 11 today.
Yes, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, no action. We move then to just the posting of the open vacancies, which I appreciate those always coming to us. Next is on our agenda, personnel requisitions. We have a resolution approving the personnel requisition for full-time public health director. Dawn, did you want to address that? You've had the conversations with members of the Board of Health.
Yes, I've had communication, and just most recently this morning with the Board of Health Chair, Tom Beshen, letting him know that I was going to be recommending that no action be taken on this. There's been some communication that's been forwarded to me that the full board would like, there are members of the Board of Health who would like to have discussion as the full board. And so this is an agenda item for their meeting this coming Wednesday. So the request was forwarded to me by just Chair Beshen, but others on the Board of Health would like to talk about the position, the job description, and the full placement of this position. So I'm asking that we just take no action today to allow the full Board of Health to discuss and come to a consensus of how they like to move forward on Wednesday.
Are my colleagues fine with taking no action?
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate that extra work. The next thing before us is the motion to approve the personnel requisition for full-time clerk cashier in the treasurer's office. I wish to take action.
I would make a motion to approve the clerk cashier We're done.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. At the end of our formal meeting, we have an opportunity for public comments. If anyone would like to address the board on any matters which are of concern, you may do so at this time. You can go to the podium, state your name and address, limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're in the virtual world, please enter your, we do have one chat comment. Maybe we could look at that if that's the person that wishes to be heard. Otherwise, raise your hand or enter another chat comment.
I think that was
That's
Chris.
a comment from Chris Soder. So we'll wait a moment to see if anyone wishes to address a comment to the board. I don't have anyone here in the boardroom. Is there anyone virtually? Okay, very good. That concludes our formal agenda. We move on to the work sessions that are before the Board of Supervisors at this time. Does anyone wish to take a motion to recess? Ask my staff. Anybody? Colleagues? Continue on?
Okay,
I'm okay for a bit.
I'm okay for a bit too, yeah.
So the first work session is with Clark University that's going to present an application for us to consider from MHDS. It's an application for our final fund balance project. And welcome, Kate. I know Kate Zanger from Clark University. We'll ask you to give your name and address for the record.
My name is Kate Zanger, and I live at 261 Southgate Drive in Dubuque. And I'm here today representing the institutions of higher education.
Can you hear her okay, Harley?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thanks. So as many of you know, mental health and brain health are issues that have been increasing among our college student population. And this is my 40th year working on a campus of higher education and my 27th at Clark University. I would say in that time I have definitely seen an increase, but during the COVID pandemic, this definitely has exacerbated this fact. Students going into quarantine, into isolation, having to social distance, wear masks, online classes when needed due to COVID are all factors that I think contribute to this fact. Our counseling services on our college campuses are very busy, and students who reach out for services or are referred to services either on or off campus can do very well and succeed as a student with these supports. But we also know that there are students who stop out of school or just drop out because of their brain health issues. So one of the strategies that I brainstormed with my colleagues at the other institutions about is to try to get a team of people or a few people at each of our campuses trained in something called mental health first aid. And this is a national organization. They provide a 3-day instructor training, and then once trained, the instructors can then do 8-hour trainings with faculty, staff, and even students on our campuses to recognize when someone is showing signs that they might have some brain health issues or even substance use issues. So it's our hope that the more people we can get educated and maybe have the confidence to have those conversations with our students, the better students will be able to be referred for services before they hit a situation where it's just too much for them to handle and they have to leave school. So the proposal is to have each of our campuses, and I've made contact with the people in my job, Vice President for Student Life. Everybody has a little bit of a different title, but they've all committed to finding either faculty or staff on their campus who would be willing to be trained as instructors. So the proposal is to fund the training for the instructors, and then once the instructors start the training, the cost is about $18 to $20 to buy an instructor manual for each person who will be trained. So we built into the budget just a little bit of money to get that started, and then each campus would pick that up for themselves after that. So that's basically why we're bringing the proposal to you, and I thank you for your consideration. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Do you have questions for?
I do not. Thank you for bringing the program to our attention. I look forward to supporting it.
Thank you.
I definitely know there is a need on the college campuses for it, but thank you for bringing it forward.
And I would say, Kate, I also appreciate, I know that there's some incidentals and some other costs that Clark University will be absorbing as you become the host campus for this intensive training. So I think it's a model that maybe other counties throughout our region will look at as well, and maybe we'll find regional long-term funding for this. On a cyclical basis, I would think it's something we want to be refreshed on as well. So certainly I support this endeavor. This would take our mental health disability services fund balance project to zero. All of our funds would be expended. The next regional governing board meeting is in January, so we have time to get all those documents lined up. We do have a resolution in our packet today, so it's been published. We could take action if you wanted to approve this in a $30,000 request. Today we can do that, take that action. Is anyone interested?
I will make a motion to approve the Clark University Mental Health DH funding recommendation resolution.
And I will second.
And just in discussion, we understand that Clark is the host, but it's all 7 campuses. It's all 7 institutions of higher education. Okay, very good. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That motion is unanimous. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we still fine to go, or do we wish to take a brief recess?
I'm still good. On schedule or
Right.
a little ahead or a little
Our
behind?
next work session is with the folks from Crest Manor. You want to come forward and join us here? Good morning. Always good to have discussion.
Morning.
And be aware of what's going on. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Hello, Sheila. Good to see you again.
Come on,
Hi, Dan.
Central
Come on
Model.
up.
Sit in through here.
Good to see you. And I think we have some information.
Okay.
Emily, you're here too. You come in somehow and I didn't see you. So for purposes of the record, why don't we just briefly do introductions down the line so everyone in the virtual world knows who we have present?
Perfect. I'm Dani Etzema, the administrator at Crest Manor. I'm Sheila Frank, the Board of Trustees of Crest Manor.
And I'm Emily Goshi, the Finance Director of Crest Manor.
And are all the microphones on? Okay, very good. So we're live to go. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here with us.
I'm going to go through a document here that was prepared by Mike Muir, who's our finance guy. I'm hoping you all have this.
It was in the packet, and it's now up being screen shared as well. So if there's something there you would like to have us.
Okay. Here's our situation. We're probably made aware a long time ago that we were planning a major renovation of the east and west wings of our second and third floors. This was necessary because of infrastructure issues. Our plumbing is bad. Our water pressure is bad. The water temperature is inconsistent. And these are things that need to be brought up to code. We also have electrical issues. The wiring is old. It needs to be updated as well. So this is something that we've needed for a while. We've been aware of it. We've been saving up our money. And pre-COVID, we were ready to do this. We had enough money squirreled away. We were ready to go out to bid. COVID happened. Now, here we are today, much later. Many things have changed. There are supply chain issues. The cost of materials has gone up if you can get them. The cost of labor has gone up if you can find employees. So we went out to bid, and our low bid, unfortunately, was almost $1 million high from what our budget is. Now, we do receive funds twice a year from our tax levy. So if we include a year's worth of funds, because this project will run 18 months, we are still low. We're still short of money. We still need funds. We have had our architect work with the low bidder. They've been able to save about $100,000 on recommendation of the contractor, but we have contingencies that we have to include in our budget because our building is 100 years old.
and I don't know if any of you have remodeled, but oftentimes you find unexpected surprises when you start doing work, and that is always the case with Sunnycrest. So, our situation is urgent because the bid was received November 23rd. It's good for 60 days. So we need to scramble to get some funding to make a decision whether or not we can accept this bid by January 23rd. So we have, if you look at the back of the page, we have applied for the American Rescue Plan funds.
Here with the county, correct?
Yes. The amount we applied for, mentioned in the document is $908,000, and I have attachment A here, which was included, but I just highlighted the dollars that we had in here. And Danny can take you through the reasoning for them, but they're all COVID-related, they're all related to infection control, and we have 4 separate items listed here. Danny, you want to?
Sure.
Okay.
So the HVAC portion of it definitely goes into the COVID aspect of getting in fresh and putting out air, you know, as far as getting good return air. And so that would definitely be a portion of that. The water aspect of it runs into the infection control because obviously we need to clean things, we need to wash our hands, we need to be able to do all of those. So that runs into moving our stuff through COVID. To the electrical part of it is the portion of the electrical that we were looking at runs directly with the HVAC portion. So all of those things would directly correlate to how we can make things safer with COVID for our residents and our staff.
So here's my question, remembering what the application was for and when you were reporting to us what you planned to do before COVID, I didn't understand you were going to be adding a second floor to the ancillary building.
That's kind of option B.
Is that new from COVID? Is that part of what you're asking for the Federal Rescue Plan dollars to be used for?
So that was the second portion of the American Rescue Act. We understand that there are many people who have asked for monies from the American Rescue Act, so we understand if that isn't. The second portion of that, which would have been B plan, was that we don't cohort residents as much, because that's another infection control, and not just COVID. So COVID eventually, we will hope, will go away, but infection control is giving transmissible diseases to other people. So cohorting individuals in the same rooms obviously spreads things. So that was a second part of that we looked at. This portion of it directly goes with the actual remodel. So
you could say that Plan B was our wish list, and Plan A is a necessity.
Yes. And, you know, when you, Sheila, you make Sunnycrest sound so very, in such poor condition. And I just want to be sure that are we your target audience as supervisors, or is the community at large your target audience in saying, I mean, the building doesn't have a leaking roof. I mean, there's many, many things there that work fine. I don't remember your application before COVID being because the building was falling down around you. It's just that it needed to be updated, and as trustees, you were just trying to take the time to make the necessary improvements. Is that right?
Yes, and we had planned for that, and we had saved funds to do that, but now we're in a situation where we don't have sufficient funds. And we're also in a situation where the clock is ticking, and we need to make a decision on this bid that we received by January 23rd.
And in your letter to us, I think you state that you would, if we advance the shortage for your necessary remodel, that those funds would be repaid to us. How do you think that would work? I mean, maybe Stella, you can even chime in on this too. How would that work?
Well, we had done it once before when we improved our road. I don't know how many times you've been up to Sunnycrest, but the road off of Roosevelt used to go like this, and now it just goes like this. It was going to be a project we were going to spread over 3 fiscal years, because that was the only way we could afford to fund it. So we had come to the Board of Supervisors, asked them to loan us some money, I guess you could call it a loan, so that we could do it over a shorter time frame, reduce the disruption, and save a lot of money. As it turned out, we were able to get some favorable weather conditions. We were able to get some extra funds. We all tightened our belts and saved our pennies, and we were able to do it all in one fell swoop, and so we didn't need the money from the supervisors. Our situation here is that if we are able to receive some money from the American Rescue Plan, that would help us out, but that's an unknown at this point, and we have to know before January 23rd. So, do you have a time frame for when those funds will be awarded?
We're working on that right now, and so, we're looking at, you're in the internal applications, I noticed, and so we're working on external applications probably through January, and hopefully shortly after that, we'll get to internal applications. But it doesn't mean the board can't act outside of that, but that's kind of what our plan is at this point.
Okay.
And I know.
What I'd be interested in knowing is that, you know, how strong of a request is the American Rescue Funds versus a loan? If you've made that determination. Certainly a loan, from my vantage point, seems very easy to accommodate, if that's what you're looking for. If it's use of American Rescue Funds, we kind of have to compare that to other requests in fairness, and that might take a little longer.
Well, we'd like both.
Right. Well, and do you mind if I just also interject one more thing? That there's, Stella, in your budget information that you've put out to everyone, it states that the internal ARPA applications will be presented to us as part of the budget discussions. So when you come back and you're looking at your budget issues for, to begin July 1st, that'll be within the next 30 days, most likely, 6 weeks. We would expect to have conversation with you about your ARPA application. Isn't that kind of how you see this?
Yep, we've laid it out for the internal departments.
So that's when the internal departments are all going to be kind of heard by us. Now, that was kind of news to me. I didn't decide that. We didn't decide that as a board, but that's kind of the team's way forward. But I'm with Supervisor Wickham in that the idea of a loan and kind of, we'll have your back, that makes some sense to me. But the dance of what funds come from a loan and what comes from your greater ARPA request, sounds like we have competing deadlines.
So one of the things that we discussed when I met with Danny and Emily is that a big majority of this is the contingency. So we don't know exactly the timing of the need of this, and it could be on the back end of the construction. So the loan would work well because they're not 100% sure that they need it. It's just the likelihood that there is overruns is high. So that's why we built in that contingency, and that's the majority of the need. So they'll have cash on hand for almost all of the construction.
That's correct. The project is estimated to last 18 months, and we pay as we go.
Sure.
To the bids is what we're really at this point asking for, to say either way, whether it be American Rescue Act or loan, we can say, yes, we can go ahead with these bids so we can start when they're ready to start. So we don't have to go out to rebid again, and then this increases, which would be that's not good for us to go and rebid, obviously, and then the price goes up instead of staying where it's at.
I don't think there's any concerns with that. The loan issue, I think, is just about guaranteed from what I've heard from my colleagues, that there's not much of an issue with that. The ARP funds, on the other hand, are not a guarantee because there's obviously a lot of people with their hands out for that, where, I would be willing to forward the loan to Sunnycrest that you can get this RFP signed or contract signed before prices go up again.
So
I would agree with that as well, so, yeah. And then that's something you'd have today and you could move forward. Obviously, you'd be moving forward without, acknowledgement and confirmation on any American Rescue Funds, which would be in the form of non-repayable, I guess. The loan potentially would have terms to it of repayment, which we could work out. So I'm willing to offer that today, so to speak, and then we can paper it up.
Okay. question I have goes to, is there any kind of cost savings to looking at your Plan B, as you say? Is there any possible cost savings to Plan B by having them all be part of one project?
Yes, I'm sure there would be. We have a contractor on site, we would have could have the materials, purchased in advance. We wouldn't have to pay startup costs. Wouldn't have to pay architecture fees again, we wouldn't have to pay engineering fees again.
Well, I guess I would put that back on you then. You know, you need to make a decision on this RFP by January 21st. But we won't know if the American Rescue Plan's decision unless we change something on our, I mean, if we're going to try to meet them with a different date. Otherwise, I just don't know. I mean, you have to decide some of that.
Well, we have discussed that, and if we are successful in receiving the loan from the County of Dubuque, we will proceed with our east-west wing remodel, as we're calling it, and then we will start saving our funds up for Plan B, and that will be our next project.
I see.
Because that particular project wasn't bid, that was just an estimate from FEH.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, is what they thought it would cost. So what you got was an estimate, you know, and I can't guarantee that how close that would be, because their estimate, obviously it was in 2019, was significantly, well, even July was significantly different than the actual cost at this time. So, but we did, just so you know, in our due diligence, Mike had talked to FEH and did say, you know, we could get about $100,000 savings. We could look at we have to do these in phases because of our residents. We could look at some of those things to try to save money, you know, too. So, which I appreciate Sheila and all Mike's work that they've done on this. So, they have looked at some cost savings there. The thing with this current project is that it is a necessity. The next one is something that will make the life of residents at Crest, you know, better, and eventually they will need their own space, so we can look at, hopefully we don't have another pandemic, but if we do, no, we'll see where we're at.
And Danny, you have lived professionally through a complete construction and moving people and reconstruction, I guess, in some respect. But so if you're saying that a Plan A should be the go and Plan B needs to be worked up, I guess I kind of say that's somebody with some experience saying that it will work for the residents and the staff to do this in pieces and potentially two programs or two remodels.
I think it's going to have to, and just the pure fact that that building, that Plan B, without any of the east-west remodel, was estimated at about $5 million. So, I mean, that is a huge difference, you know, in this, you know, potentially $623,000. So
it's not a minor increase. It's actually a doubling of the project, obviously.
Yep. So when looking at that, is it something that, you know, we've all talked about the fact that, okay, when we get this one done, we need to save, you know, that's something that we've definitely talked about. I do think eventually, like I said, it does need to be done, but this for sure is a necessity at this point.
So do we have consensus that a loan we have appetite for a loan to make the RFP go forward before January 20th?
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, and so am I. I think it makes sense, and so however we would go about that procedurally to create a document to identify the loan, and, you know, maybe the board might want to, I don't know if we want to step into terms or other things, whether there's interest or no interest, whether it's 18 months or longer. We could have a brief conversation on that now, otherwise we'll have to have another meeting to get to that point in order to get the documents.
I would leave the length up to Danny or whatever, you know, is gonna work best for them.
We can talk about that at
the length of the loan.
But yeah, we're having a board meeting this afternoon, so we can discuss it then.
Or is, you know, January okay for a decision? That's what we're looking at then, you know, and so I'm conscious to your time frame. So if we don't decide it now, we're not going to decide until January. If we don't even know the terms, we've got to decide those. Now you're into the second week or two of January. Just
yes,
just
I'd like
talking through.
to.
Is that okay?
I'd like to especially have input from Mike Manor. He's our finance guy on the Board of Trustees.
Well, that's fine. I guess for your.
Yeah, we have next week as well. I apologize. I glanced at the wrong week. So we do have next week. So if we can get those together next week, then we'll be in good shape.
But for the RFP, I mean, for the contract, you know you're gonna get the money, per se. So you'd be good to go ahead and sign the contract. That was kind of the question, that they didn't have the money to.
Yeah. I think we can get this all done, back on the agenda for next Monday.
We won't need money potentially until August of 2023 either.
Yeah.
So I guess,
This,
hopefully we don't even need it, but I guess.
talking about the final decision.
Mhm.
Right, so you have certainty from, right now you have 3 people nodding their heads. You really would like us to pass a resolution to some kind of document.
I mean, preferably we want the
Yes.
relief funds that we don't have to pay back, but just, it'd be nice to enter into this.
Yeah, I think if next week you can come back to what you think are favorable terms, whether that's 0 interest, whether that's for 18 months, and the exact dollar amount. I know I got a couple, I got 908 and I got 623. Those would be helpful if we could come back next week with, and then we could potentially take formal action
Okay.
first meeting or 2 in January.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Danny.
you for all that you're doing. Your platitudes, really, but much appreciated.
Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
See you.
Hey, Danny.
I will make a motion to recess till 10:45.
I will second that.
Motion is second to recess till 10:45. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Okay, well, we're back in session, and we are missing a couple folks, and it's really noisy. So,
Let's wait till they're here. Hey, you can let it go for a little bit, for God's sake. It's 74 degrees.
your mic's on, Supervisor.
I'll say it again. Why does it have to be 80 degrees in here? Just trying to get some comfort level.
Okay, we're just missing a couple more folks. I understand we're gonna have a presentation of some kind. We need Stella. Is she on her? Can't hear anything, sorry.
Yeah.
ARPA is next, yes?
Doing Stella. We'll wait till Stella. Wait till Stella. There's Stella.
Why don't we bring you up, Ed, so you can be talking with the microphone?
I'll turn this one off once we get it.
Stella, we'll put you somewhere where you're near a microphone too.
We can tag on this. This is Ed Raber, and I apologize, outside of your meeting packet, we have a short slide deck that has some discussion about the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, information that you requested. We weren't asking for any decisions today. This is just sort of to help frame up where we are, that next step. Budget Director Stella Rundy had put together a slide deck of some information on the survey results, and that is here. At the end of that, I added some additional information that represents the way the auditor, HR Budget Director, and myself worked through last week, some initial ways we wanted to present the rest of some of the ARPA information to you and just how it all relates to each other in some different categories. So that's where we're going to start. So if you happen to be a non-colorblind person, I'm just going to talk. Stella will jump in when she wants to. We didn't receive this, did we?
No.
You've not, but you will after we're done.
All right, sounds good. I like bringing it on my screen so then I can see it. Otherwise, I can't even read what's on there.
Right, it's true, and that's fine. Don't panic about that right now. At the end of this,
Explaining that you could just send it to us by email so I can have it right in front of me so I can read it.
Right, could you do it now?
Dawn can do that.
Send it also to Ben Fisher, obviously.
I've got 2 computers, man. I'm loaded.
I can hardly read it across the way here, but what this represents are the feedback from the community survey. Ben, we'll get that to you too. The community survey that was done at the end of last summer into the fall. And draw your attention to the highest categories. I can't note the color, but health and social services, things like food security, mental health, physical health, employment, equity, was the largest slice at about 19%. Second is emergency services at 17%. Following a bit down from that, at 12% each, was infrastructure and business recovery and workforce development. Trailed by some other issues such as housing, community facility improvements, technology for things like cybersecurity, software, computer hardware, as well as things like cultural arts, history and events, and government efficiency through our some of our virtual services that we've been offering.
The slide deck doesn't come through for me as, that first graphic you just showed isn't here.
It's the apple.
That doesn't exist, so
The apple.
if we want that to be able to be dispersed to the public.
It's the apple. You're looking at
But
your
you
device.
have it, so it came through on yours?
Well, no, it's it's the Apple device that's causing problems.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure we have it for the reporter.
If you open with Microsoft Office, it works. That's yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah,
We'll
it's
check
not
that
helpful for us with iPad.
and get a version that I'm an Apple user too. We'll make sure that works for anyone that happens to have an Apple device. shows that most of the participants in the survey identified as female, were male, and there were a notable number, a little over 7% that preferred not to say, but so slight trend toward more female respondents.
How many people? How many responses did we get? And we don't know if they're unique or if somebody responded 6 times.
They're unique responses.
And do you know how many there are?
I can tell you in 1 second. Let's see. 319.
319 total responses, and they are all unique.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And 319?
319.
319. Remember that conversation a few months ago?
I do.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We didn't spend any money on the survey, we'd get a very small pool.
Most of the people that responded were white or either didn't or preferred not to say.
Okay.
And most all of them were either non-Hispanic or just did not indicate. There was some distribution between ages. A quarter were in their 30s, a fifth were in their 40s, and another quarter were in, I think I said that backwards, in their 40s, and then another quarter in their 50s. You can all see that. And the last 30% was in above 60. So that actually represents quite an age distribution of people. Not that many people in their 20s or younger, but people 30 and over mostly took the survey. And by zip code, most of them were from the Dubuque area, and slightly less than representative number in the rural area. And roughly half of them had dependents living with them, so these were a lot of families with dependents. About half, and the other half were at one extreme, either young enough that they didn't have children, or old enough that they had gone, or they just did not have children. So did anybody, before we jump into the next section, that is just a brief synopsis of the, as I think has been pointed out, a non-scientific survey, but it did, in some sense, take the temperature of what people were thinking. So I'm going to revisit that here in the next little brief section. So.
Thank you. Nope, let's move to whatever you want us to look at next.
So it's a bit of text here, so I apologize for that. This is just a recounting or stepping through the 3 different things that you've dealt with so far. The first, earlier this fall, we dealt with the county or the East Central Region's mental health fund balance. This fiscal year, starting July, including today's action, you approved 13 projects, I believe, for about $1.3 million. That kind of closes that off. That was sort of the initial bite of this sort of funding apple that you've taken. Moved to the county's purchase of service program. Initially, last December, there were 39 initial applications looking for $1.6 million. Ultimately, through that program, you've approved 20 projects for about $577,000 total. And some of the projects that were not funded through that program, they've all just kind of rolled to the next bucket if they had applied for that. And so that last one is the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. Technically, I'm throwing this in here, it's the program that you have access to is the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, the SLFRF program. That ends up not being rolling off the tongue easily, and that's the reason we call it ARPA. But technically, it's SLFRF funds that you have received to program. Internal county ARPA applications, you had about 27 for $46 million, just over $46 million. You had external applications of about 64 initial applications this September for a total of $19.3 million. Because of some of the actions you took in steps 1 and 2, what you still have of ARPA applications is 44 remaining. Some of those you funded, some of them have dropped away, didn't reapply, or had some other issues. You have 44 remaining, requesting a total of $16.4 million. So that's really the universe, although it's the last one. I'm going to show that again, but that's the last part of the slide there is 44 external apps for $16.4 million. Next slide. So the pie chart, this is a different way of looking at the pie chart.
Can we go back one slide, please, Ed? What I'd like to see us develop is some kind of a list of the applicants. So I understand that, but not for internal applicants here. This is going to be external applicants.
It's in the slide deck, couple slides later, I think maybe what you're looking for, I'm not sure.
They're internal, or excuse me, they're external. I don't think you've got anything here for us for internal applications from our departments, right?
Correct. So we took the approach, the board directed us to look at external everything first, so that's what we're focused on today. And then the internal will come through the budget process.
Right, and what I'm saying with my colleagues up here right now is saying, you're going to be going, we're going to go into budget, and I would like to have, you don't have it today, and that's fine, but I would like to see there be a listing of our internal applications as well, not just as they come up in the budget.
Sure. But we have that already in the folder that you sent to us.
So that should be all available in that OneDrive folder, but we can certainly put it out again for you.
Yep. Yes, we'll do that.
So the summary is very similar to the summary you see here. That's in our OneDrive, but we can send it out to others.
We can, I think, generate lists similar to what I'm about to show you for the external apps that look very similar in terms of how we parse them out.
Are you asking to compare them now? Is that what you would like to do?
No, I'm just saying we're pausing, we're going to start going into listings, and the next thing you begin to do is categorize them by support public health response. I would like to see the whole list for our internal applications.
Yeah, that's not what we previously decided. We've said we're going to do external first and review them. So I would stay with that.
The only new piece of information is they're going to come up in budget. I don't want to see them piecemeal. I'd like to see them overview, and then we can start looking at them in piecemeal. That's my point. It's not for today.
Right.
It's my preference.
Without considerable effort, we'll generate that for the Board of Supervisors. You can look at that. Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make it difficult.
That's just fine. Thank you. This is sort of a restating of the slide we saw earlier with the pie chart, sort of just showing how those different categories in that survey sort of shook out. Again, drawing your attention to the top, things were things like health and social services, emergency services, followed by business recovery and workforce development, infrastructure. Those tended to be the top priorities that people responded to in the survey. And next slide. So in the ARPA bill, there's 4 broad categories that sort of encompass what we just saw in that last survey. And I've restated here 44 remaining external applications looking for $16.4 million. Among those 4 categories, support the public health response, address negative economic impacts, invest in water, sewer, and broadband, and provide premium pay for essential workers. I broke out, we as a team broke out those responses so that you get a sense of how they fell across those 4 different subject areas in the ARPA Act. There were about a third or 14 applications looking for $5.7 million, broadly under support the public health response, which I think, in our opinion, kind of matches those top interest areas in the public survey. Addressing the negative economic impacts, there were actually the largest group, 22 applications, or half of the applications were about that, looking for $7.6 million. Investments in water, sewer, and broadband from external applications were smaller, just 6 applications looking for just under $3 million. There were only 2 applications for just a couple $100,000 looking for premium pay for essential workers.
Unless you include Hills and Dales and Hillcrest from the MHDS request, which were about $1.4 million combined.
It's correct, and I appreciate that you bring that up, Supervisor McDonough. I didn't be happy to do that if it's one that you'd like to consider. Hills and Dales did not submit at the time in September, did not submit a American Rescue Plan Act. After that, they had submitted something for the mental health fund balance application. Those applications are very similar. We're not reflecting that here. If you would like to consider that, we'd be more than happy to add it to the list. It's your option. It certainly is one requesting premium pay for essential workers. So that is a general view of how across those four ARPA-defined categories, how we saw that they fit in there, and that they, in many ways, I think, reflect the priorities in that public survey. Slide. So, as a way to help enumerate those, these are the 14 applications looking for $5.7 million, just listed alphabetically, including ones that start with the. So that's just as our first slice there. But that gives you a sense of how many there are. I'm going to ask that you may have questions or comments, but I'm going to go through each of these here, the next slide. So I apologize, you're not going to be able to read this very well on a slide like this, but there were 22 applications to address negative economic impacts, looking for $7.6 million from nonprofits in the community mostly. And
the Dream Center, where do they fall in?
The Dream Center's application was reworked after they initially applied for mental health funding, and it is not listed here. We were listing that as one that you addressed in funding in the mental health fund balance program.
So you've removed some things from this list.
There are items that their ARPA or their purchase of service application has been dealt with, and that is part of the way you went from 64 applications initially down to 44 by funding some of these through other programs.
That includes the ones we funded today. We passed a resolution, right, that were both purchase of service and ARPA. They're not on here.
Correct. So there are some that...
The fair's on here.
Correct. There was a group, I will refer back to what we called Table 6, where there was some applications where you moved to fund their purchase of service request, which was smaller, and to allow their somewhat different ARPA request to advance to this stage. That's what we talked through. So there were some applications that in Table 5, where they had applied for the same thing last December and in September through the ARPA portal, and you funded that application through purchase of service. Because anyone that had applied for a purchase of service or a grant last December, at your requirement, they were to submit a revised application through the ARPA portal. And so...
I don't recall making a decision that the Dream Center was only going to be funded by MHDS. So again, for me, and obviously it's a me statement, the ones that you removed from further consideration, I'd like to see them just as an asterisk or something that, they asked us for, I think, $1 million, the Dream Center. I think they're quite pleased that with the request that they have, that we've moved on to the region on their behalf and it's been approved. But I do think we should probably continue to follow those through somehow.
Yeah, I'd support that. I think it'd be good to mark those and and have those on a list or included with this list, that they've already have some funding sent to them, but they have an additional request, or it was different than their ARPA request.
So this is the feedback that I think as staff we were exactly hoping for today in this sort of initial discussion. So thank you.
But did the Dream Center reapply under the mental health from their first application, then they reapplied for the 400,000 through the mental health, right?
There were a variety of applications through that process, Supervisor Potoff, that I would say, in working with the county, revised their application as we just worked through that sausage making, for lack of a better term.
Kind of so that they fit, maybe part of their request fits better under this funding opportunity. Right. So MHDS, while you include it in this, it is a separate and unique thing. And it doesn't, I mean, there's two ways to look at this, that we're handing out all of this funding, but what we're actually doing is giving nonprofits an opportunity to be funded by other revenue sources, right? So, you know, that's a great thing. We didn't fund them. That happened because there's regional money available. So I would just like to see us keep track of it a little bit so that nobody's application is forgotten or minimized.
So similar to the memo that you would use that we provided as a tool for you to make some decisions through the purchase of service, I think that we can just sort of have some tablature, the next memo that you'll be seeing on this external application stuff that notes a little bit more clearly what you have done, where we've been. So we'll just incorporate that.
What was your goal today?
You're achieving our goal, just giving us this feedback on how you'd like to advance. If there are any, as we look at what we would like to see in terms of if supervisors would like any of these to come make a presentation to you, or you'd like some other information, or you'd like us to be communicating back with them, that's sort of the feedback that we're hoping for today. So, and if that's by a grouping like this, or some other way,
I think this is helpful. It's still the long list.
It is.
And then you have the summary of the dollar amounts. That's helpful. I think the next level is to attempt what's practical related to either the survey or what you hear from the board. So this is good. I got it. I already had all this information already. You just categorized it, which is okay. I still have more applications than I have funding.
Correct.
I would like to be tracking, this is good, but I would like to know that the contracts are out, contracts are signed, and money received. So all those MHDS things are now off the table. Did the contracts get signed? Have we issued check payment? You know, I think that we are already being accused of being so slow with things are burning down around us and we're slow. I'd like to see it that we're starting to get some things out the door, right? So I don't know if it's a longer spreadsheet or if we can have status updates as part of this, like here's what's gone out, here's what we've confirmed has been sent to the nonprofit. That would be helpful for me.
For the, taking a step back, the mental health fund balance funds that you recommended on, including today's action, recommended on to the governing board, regional governing board, I believe that, obviously not today's, but they've taken action to approve the ones that you recommended at their recent meeting. And I know that, because I have been, to a certain extent, helping to provide information to the staff of the East Central region as they work to, with those groups to develop contracts. So that process appears to me to be underway. On the arrangements that you by resolution formalized today on purchase of service, after last Monday, I have been in contact to notify those groups that you took action on last Monday, formalized today, and I've started to work on those contracts and with those groups.
When do you think you'd be done with that? If you think you have it, is it 1 week, is it 1 month? I mean, we just proved it today, so I understand that.
Right. I am very hopeful that based on the information that we received, that, next week I'll have some contracts for purchase of service in your packet.
Within the next 30 days, all of them complete?
Oh, yes, that would be a huge disappointment even with the holidays.
Well, we're
We don't have
getting
it all.
about 30 days out from Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, Dubuque Food Policy Council folks.
I believe that.
That's where I'm asking, I think we need a status to see these all the way to the end. So obviously, I'm fretting over the details, I get that. And you're high level here with reorganization, but I really need to see it to conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get my head around how we're gonna divide this up to start with. So we have no set number. So thinking, just say certain percentage of the applications are external to internal. Okay, we have just say 3.5 million that we're gonna give to the external. I think we should go through, one of the options is going through the list of externals, see which ones are viable, which ones are not. Okay, if you're gonna give the 3.5 million and there's 15 million in request, what percentage? Okay, it's 20%. Everybody that's left on it gets 20% of their ask, and you're done. Everybody gets something.
I don't want to do that, though. I just don't. I don't want to.
You wanna tell the ones no?
Yeah,
And
I
tell
do.
them why?
I do, and I've done that. For many, many years, I've done that.
But obviously, there's a lot of them there.
I
is
know
what
that,
I'm
Harley,
saying.
but, you know, we can't meet all the needs, and many of these have moved on, and they've applied from other places as well.
That's what I'm
But
saying, we
have
can't
some-
meet everybody's needs,
But
so
we have some tremendous internal applications that aren't even in our spreadsheet
that's
yet.
internal. We're talking external here. I was just talking the external.
I mean, what I would like to see is kind of we've got categorization now. I would love to see either the board developed or we recommend from staff as well. High level, where do we think we should have spending in? So we've got some losses for sure. That's a piece we're gonna have. And now we could say, we're gonna spend or allocate X amount of millions, so let's say 4 million for external, and we're gonna pick a number, 5 minutes for internal, and then the remaining balance is gonna be for future projects.
You know, even when you.
So, something like that, I'm just hypothetically
Right.
throwing that off.
Not all counties are even reimbursing themselves. There's some criteria we might use about when we look at reimbursing ourselves, for what purpose.
Yeah, we can figure it out. I mean, I think, agree, some counties, there's a lot of things you can read of various uses. I think we still need to address this piece, so I'm still talking about big, 4 of the 5 things I said will address these items. And I think that's what we should focus our attention on. But, what is it? Is it 19.5 million that we're gonna spend on all these? Or is it less? And just start working on that question. And I think it's clearly less, and so I think you're dealing with, those are the buckets I would have, maybe 4 buckets. They'd be hold back for losses, they'd be a bucket for external, a bucket for internal, and a bucket for future community projects that are supervisor-led or community-led.
I would have no problem with that. It's just, you gotta get it broke down to something
How
that
would
you know
you
where
like
to
to
go.
have staff take a shot at it, so we don't
That's fine.
haggle on? So I think you've got some consensus there. Recommendation, we would love to see it. You've done good work so far, but what do you feel or think that recommendation should be if you had those 4 buckets or so? And then we'll start from there.
We were also discussing, similar to the boards and commissions appointments you made earlier today, there were common ties. Each of you had identified people for certain boards and commissions that were all common denominators between the 3 of you. We were considering sort of along the parameters you just stated, giving each of you individually a survey in which, whether it's 30%, 70%, whatever you guys wanted to do, you would allocate. Give us an idea of where you stand as a supervisor. We would look for those common threads, and that would help us.
In categories, or are you thinking individual applications?
It could be either way.
Okay.
I mean, but that gives us a way to look at common threads between the 3 of you, and then move those towards the top of the presentation list Because we know that we have 3 supervisors who have said, well, these are our priorities, or this is at least one of the priorities that you have top of mind. And that may be a way for us to identify a direction that the board would like to go.
Yeah, I would support that. I would support some homework that gives us some common threads to work on outside of this discussion that gives you some feedback.
I think I'd be open to that as well. I'd like to see the structure. I don't want to be held on a first draft of my prioritized with 60 items, you know what I mean? So, and I think those should be public, and so try to keep them broad, not rank 1 to 60.
Yeah, this is about getting ideas from the supervisors.
If you rank them 1 to 3 of importance, something along those lines, knowing that 3 still could be funded, I would be in favor of something along those lines. I think we still need to keep it broad. I mean, we're not going to be able to fund all of them. And so big ones, well, obviously the more you fund, the smaller dollar amounts people will have to accept. That's just logical. If you fund the large ones, that will eliminate a lot of small ones. And so somewhere in there is the happy middle ground. And maybe if we have the list you mentioned, that would
I would think that between the 4 of us, we would be able to come up with some materials for each supervisor that would sort of thread the needle as far as high level, but getting into the details a little bit.
That, but also as a draft of categories.
Yeah,
you know, maybe my colleagues, this is the first time I've talked about, you know, having some additional American Rescue funds for additional community projects that, you know, maybe not an application we put out their website, but that we feel as a board are important.
Something comes up that you can say, hey, this works.
That's Supervisor Wickham, that's what you call some project you don't know about now, or something?
Yeah, community-led and supervisor-led projects.
I would also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm done, go ahead.
I'd like to also say that some of these, can't be funded, no way, no how, right? So Smokestack Industries, they're not even a nonprofit.
But they're eligible as a support for business that has suffered some kind of loss.
We're going to give a private entity a federal grant reporting requirement. I mean, some of this you got to go through and say, this is the pros and the cons. I think that's some vetting. That doesn't mean you're the decision maker, but I think some vetting's helpful.
I agree, but I think that's where I've been saying, I'd like that information, that guidance. So we talk about substitutes. I think, the federal government's been sending money to private businesses left and right. PPP, idle loans, restaurant revitalization.
You want to ask that question of folks like that? Say, have you gotten other funding? I mean, maybe there's further.
I can tell you the answer is yes, for almost 90%.
We could add a column to each of the tables that gives you our recommendation as to whether the entity would be ready to accept federal funds. My guess would be that the majority of these probably would. There's probably some outliers that may have an issue, but that once they've made this list, once they're up here, I think they'll be good to go.
I think it's easier to focus on the high-level structure of this, and then, as you said, the common areas. So maybe scored at the top of our list, or at least a 1, if you're doing 1 for 3, is, I'll use an example, bell tower. Okay, wow, we all think that's the greatest thing, it's 50 grand, move forward, done. And you say, yeah, that's great, and you can start to move forward on those things. So that's where I would like to get it.
And in doing so, it may eliminate the need to have some of these make presentations, because if all 3 of you are, let's do it, we can move on from there.
Capacity for time today. So we could do this for a solid 8 hours, but we have folks waiting, and we are behind with an 11 o'clock work session. I would like to.
It's been good. Thank you for organizing this. Good start.
For us, thank you.
Good start. Yeah.
I appreciate that you can send something out, and I'll look for some completion dates as well then. All right, the next work session is with the county attorney. Talk about the opioid settlement. I was glad to see that this is coming up, that ISAC keeps beating the drum that the deadline is approaching.
Yes.
The deadline is approaching.
Absolutely. So it made, some pretty big strides here in the last month or so. So with that MOU. So, in front of you today, you have the resolution, and then you have the memorandum of understanding for the Iowa opioid allocation. Got various exhibits attached to that. And then you have two other documents, the subdivision distributor settlement participation form and the subdivision Jansen settlement participation form. So that's what we'll be talking about here this morning. And just to kind of go back a little bit for everybody's, kind of education here, there was quite a bit of litigation that was brought specifically against, let's see, again, and name these off. It was McKesson Corporation, Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen Corporation, Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Ortho McNeil Janssen Pharmaceuticals, and Janssen Pharmaceutica, I believe it is pronounced. And so we were a non-litigating county. There were about, I think, 66 counties in the state of Iowa that signed up with the law firm out of Milwaukee to pursue those claims. And that was just here in Iowa. Of course, this was national, litigation all across the country. And it brought it to the point where all of these defendants have come to the table to reach settlement with both litigating and non-litigating states and subdivisions. So at this point, the way this would sort itself out is today what we need is we would need the resolution, and then you, Chair McDonough, would need to sign the two settlement agreements, which go back to the national group, and then the memorandum of understanding goes back to ISAC, I believe, and we can kind of work through that detail. But when the day is done, the maximum payment to this settlement is about $26 billion, not million, billion. And about $23 million of that would come to the local and state subdivisions. So part of that obviously is going to get paid to the litigating attorneys for the counties that did it. So that's that backup fund that you saw in that MOU. So within this, though, Iowa, what was kind of the last thing that made this thing kind of bring it to its head here today is this memorandum of understanding was reached. Because there was a question like when this money would come from the national settlement, it comes to the state. How much would be to the state? How much is to the local, the local subdivisions? They reached an agreement, and that's the MOU you have there, where 50% would go to the state of Iowa, and the other 50% would go to the counties and other subdivisions. Now, it's not only counties, but it's municipalities if they're of a certain threshold of size. My understanding is the city of Dubuque did register in the program, so they would be set to receive certain funds. So the way the numbers would probably sort themselves out of the $22 billion that would go to all the states and the subdivisions, and that would be the maximum amount that would be received if the maximum amount of states and subdivisions participate. So the best way I can describe that is these defendants obviously were seeking to have as much and complete settlement with all claimants as they possibly could. So the more participants in the settlement, the more they're willing to pay, and the more they're willing to pay, of course, then breaks down more for everybody down the line, right? I think they're very close to reaching the threshold that they need. Obviously, we'll know that once the deadline of January 2nd comes and goes. So with the 50% going to the state of Iowa for their purposes, 50% would come to the counties. In that MOU, there's an Exhibit 2, I believe, and it has a percentage there for Dubuque County of 2.745% of the local government abatement share is what that refers to. So it would look like, again, these would be the maximum amounts, but of the total, about $170 million would be coming to the state of Iowa, right? And then of that amount, about $2.3 million would come to Dubuque County, which would be the 2.745%. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is that these funds are going to be paid. Some have been paid, apparently, and are being held at this point, but generally speaking, they're paid over 18 years. So it's a long the long haul, needless to say. I did some rough math. I think that's about 2.3 million over 18 years, about $128,000 a year would come. Something I might point out to you is, all of these funds are earmarked, like 75% would go to these core strategies in that Schedule A, and I believe there's about 9 specific areas where the funds must be used. I would imagine as when these funds would start to come into the county and to the account that needs to be developed by the county, which is also in the MOU, there would need to be either some specific group, perhaps the Board of Health is a good place to place this. That would be up to you folks, of course, but it has to be applied to those categories, and it has to be all accounted for, needless to say. When the day is done, I mean, I think not only is it a question of there's, funds to come and be put to services, obviously, that you can see in that exhibit there, but I think of equal importance is 2 things, or 3 things, actually. One is that all these distributors are required to not only monitor their own shipments, but that of other distributors, so that this doesn't run rampant like it did to create this whole epidemic of opioid abuse. J&J, which I believe J&J is the parent company of, Janssen, which is the title of the agreement, is the parent company of Johnson & Johnson, and they've agreed to they stopped marketing the opioids in 2015. They stopped selling them in 2020. They won't market or sell any opioid products over the next 10 years, and cease any lobbying efforts concerning prescription opioids for 10 years. So that to me really serves a greater good. Not only does the money, but these folks not engaging in these activities any longer. And also they've agreed to make a clinical trial data for the discontinued opioids available for medical research. So in other words, they would take all of their data for what they distributed, and they would apply that to whatever data is coming back about addiction and what the role was and whatnot. So to me, that's another thing to kind of consider here today. But at this point, certainly my recommendation would be to pass the resolution and have Supervisor McDonough sign the documentation so that we can get that sent back in. We are certainly within the deadline. One other thing is my understanding is since the city of Dubuque is a participant, that when these funds will be paid, that the city's funds get paid to the county. Sort of an interesting process. So there will need to be some joint, efforts made that how all of between their money and the county money is expended here in the county and the city for those specific areas that are in that Exhibit E. So, again, it'll be coming over a period of years, but when you kind of look at some of the other funding, $127,000 or $30,000 a year for 20 years, give or take, should serve some good purposes here in the county and the city. So,
TJ, when we had an active opioid response team.
Yes.
That, Sheriff Kennedy was at those meetings as well. We were meeting at Mercy One.
Yep.
There was someone from your office who was also engaged in that, working, I think it might have been Shay. Okay. And I'm wondering if you could think about having somebody from your office be engaged in, if the Board of Health or Mercy, we just gave them some funding from Turning Point, saying that they were going to start that opioid response team again.
Sure.
Seems like that would be a great fit to get some public input into how these funds might be spent. But I would ask that maybe somebody from your office, that was great. That synergy I thought was really well done. The people that were in those rooms at Mercy One, there were, I think up to 30 different entities at one time.
Yeah,
you and I were both in that room too, so.
They were.
But that might just be to say, because getting the money and having the city of Dubuque spend it is not really what I'm interested in. Getting the money and being an integral partner in how the city responds as well as the rest of the county. And the only way we're going to do that is if somebody's in the room. you know, and we've got a lot of reporting requirements to come back to this. It's federal funds, so I don't know if it's going to be quarterly or annually. I mean, I don't even think they know all that yet, but I would like to have somebody from the county be engaged in this.
Absolutely, and I would like to believe that as this, you know, starts to roll out, that, you know, there'll be perhaps some direction. I mean, when we look at those core strategies, and I'd be happy to read them off here, you know, one was naloxone or other FDA-approved drug to reverse opioid overdoses. That refers to expanding training for first responders, schools, community support groups, and families. Next was medication-assisted treatment distribution.
Just spent $60,000 returning point.
Yeah, we've been funding that for years, but that's very good. It's good. Glad it aligns.
Right.
You know,
So,
it aligns with what we've been doing in the past.
Absolutely. So probably what suggestion might be is, you know, to look at these core requirements where those funds have to go anyway and see what funds you're already, you know, using or expending in areas that these could be specifically and need to be obviously used for those items anyway.
But we need to complete this process in order to be in the game.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Love to move to that.
So.
Right. Well, normally I would say has legal counsel reviewed this, but that's pretty clear. So I think we have some action items here before us. Back on our agenda, there was a resolution to approve the distributor settlement agreement, the Janssen settlement agreement, and the allocation of the MOU for the opioid litigation. So
move to approve. I will second.
Motion and a second. I'm going to pause for a minute to make sure we've got approval. I'm just reading it right from the agenda, so it encompasses it all. Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you for getting us in the game.
Before I go, maybe this has been said before I got here, but I believe today is Supervisor Wickham's birthday.
Oh, geez, on public record. They say when you're born and you die, you're guaranteed to be in the public record. Is that right, Ben? So I guess that was already public record.
So happy birthday, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Happy birthday, Jay.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
We have to sing during the meeting.
Right. Nathan, thank you for being with us to give us some brief discussion, I think, about the website. I noticed that it was looking like it might need some attention, and I think input from you and the full board would be maybe helpful.
Good morning. So there was, you are not the first to broach the subject of can we reduce or enhance this, COVID all the time, everywhere. What we would be looking for is just general direction. Do you want to still make this available, easily accessible, but perhaps rein it back to what it was pre-COVID? As a refresher, we actually had the new website designed and scheduled to go live. It was like late April of 20, so if people remember, the whole world was coming apart at that time. So we did that. I mean, we went live, and then about 2 weeks later, we refreshed it with that. So to go back in time, I had Karen grab this for me. This is pretty close to what it was when we launched. Tell our story, scenic outlook, not quite as, scary. So I'm not proposing that we would hide or reduce the COVID accessibility, but if there is a direction from the board, we can gracefully start to rein it back in, or whatever the desire would be for the board to move forward on changes.
And then this is the county auditor. We also had, Nathan and I had some discussions that if the board didn't want to have to have deliberations about what goes on the website or how it looks or how pretty it is, my office, I would be happy to be able to work directly with Nathan to oversee the front page. Obviously, all the other pages are content-driven from departments. But one less thing for you guys to take care of, and I actually have a little bit of history in web design, so I could, I'm happy to take that portion over if the board would see fit. And then Nathan and I would come to reasonable suggestions as to how to move that homepage forward.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
Yep, makes sense.
Is there a way to click through to the COVID stuff? Make this more of a page that you click through to?
Oh, yeah.
Now, when you get off the home page with you can say this is where you're going to go to get to the COVID portal or whatever, but I'd like it to begin to look like a website that isn't.
Yeah, and Nathan and I have plans to put both, basically his picture and my picture on the front page.
Perfect.
All over the place, so.
And you should soon be treasurer as well, so.
Birthday, can I get my picture on there for at least one day?
His birthday.
Yes.
Employee of the month.
Birthday of the day.
So,
We will storm and bring 90% back to what we were, while it's still this is still very valuable information. Nobody wants to hide it. It will be available.
you're not coming back to us. You're
Well,
going
if the board is
forward.
okay with what Auditor Dragato said, we will just run with this, and it'll be.
I think,
You can always have creative input, and anything can be changed.
do you want them to put
Well,
it
I'm
on
just,
the agenda?
I'm just giving them a blank check, so maybe we can what do you plan to change or edit generally? The whole interface, everything, just
We will be.
landing page only? Try to get back to that, so the color
Back to
schemes,
this.
the pull-downs look, okay.
Yeah, tell our story.
All right. And then potentially having a COVID component, which was not part of this.
Correct. Yes.
The other thing I would add too is try to make it topical and seasonal as well. So, for example, obviously snowplow and those things, it's topical, not as big a deal when it hits.
And we have a bunch of webcams as well. There are a bunch of live streams, and that's sort of, I think, where Nathan and I were arriving, is to every quarter have some new content up there.
Sounds good. Thank you. While still being able to get to the core things of, how do I like that, the government and stuff. And
Yeah, we just really haven't had a conversation since May of 20, really, about what the homepage needs to look like. So, we'll get it back from this to, closer to this, still make it available, seasonal. We're excited. It's time.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very good.
Good.
Okay, do we want to take a brief recess?
I don't need a recess.
I'm good.
Staff, need a brief recess?
Going
We're
into
good?
closed session.
Okay. Yes, we're going to go into closed session.
Get some air going.
So,
Stretch my leg.
I think Ben will ask you to leave, but I think everybody
I
else,
think he's gotta get out.
right. I think our partners are here otherwise.
Process to escape.
Did you send him that PDF information? Thank you.
Doesn't need that, they print things when it's just close to done, right? I like how you had the article today about the things we were approving today.
Yeah.
Very topical, you good confidence. Puts a lot of pressure on us to approve it.
I appreciate all the things that go into the packet too. That's very helpful. All those extra steps people take.
Thank you, Ben. Have a good day.
All right.
Thanks, Ben.
I'm looking for a motion to go into closed.
We're not ready. Get people out.
Still removing people.
Well, we can certainly make the motion to move into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.5 sub J for the purpose of discussing the purpose of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for that property.
I will
Let
make a
me know
motion to
when-
go in closed session.
I will second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And then, Dawn, let us know when you have it closed and locked. Yep.
Makes it easier. For edits, right?